Good evening, everyone. Welcome to American Advocates. This will be episode 58, I believe it is now, and with perhaps one of the biggest updates so far in what is now, what day is it for this Iran war that's taking place? Let me look that up real fast. I usually have the war cost tracker pulled up before I go live. Probably what, day 39? I think we're on day 39. Iran war cost tracker. Yeah, 38. Day 30 coming to a close. $44 billion spent on this Iran war, and that's a generous estimate. So day 38 coming to a close. Peace deal on the table all of a sudden once again with a 2-week ceasefire extension, which is something I did predict was very likely to happen. And of course, as usual, like I've been saying on this channel, making these predictions comes basically with the benefit of hindsight of how we've seen Trump operate with the China economic tariff war of last year. This is the same pattern playing itself out, but only in a more violent fashion this time around, with more serious consequences and more serious things at stake, because this is lives at stake now. This is military targets and economic targets at stake. An entire civilization, in the words of our own president, were at stake. Nevertheless, the same tactics we are seeing be played out by President Donald Trump, just like he did last year with China. And so this is really not all that surprising. I didn't concretely predict that this would happen, but I did say that Trump seems like he's at its wit's end, but at the same time, it seems like another extension could very likely happen. And it did. And the bottom line is, the pattern that I'm drawing this to with China is, you heard the speculation today when it came to, oh my God, this is it, nuclear warfare is going to happen. And that's comparable to last year when economists were freaking out about Trump threatening to tariff China. What was it? At one point, I think Trump was discussing 300% tariffs on China out of pure frustration and rage during the negotiation process. Then at one point it was, 140% tariffs? So it's like you have the 300% tariffs that he threatened back then. That's the equivalent to what we are hearing today about nukes being dropped in Iran or Moabs and complete destruction. And of course, Trump played into it, threatening civilizational destruction. Literally, he threatened that. And as unhinged as that was, of course, and we'll discuss that a little bit later on this stream, that is the same pattern of just going scorched earth to match the enemy and what they are or aren't willing to do. And then you had the 140% tariff threats last year. That's kind of like the equivalent where it's like, okay, it's not terrible, but that would be catastrophic, or at least some economists viewed it that way. That's the equivalent of like boots on the ground. And to be honest with you, I am not convinced actually that boots on the ground still will not happen there. And I'm going to explain why as well, because there was news that broke today that mainstream media is not really covering all that well. Most outlets aren't actually covering it, but I did pick up on the news today on my X channel. So I am still actually not completely convinced that boots on the ground will not take place. But that was kind of like the 140% tariff of last year. Bad, but not horrendous, though certainly the final straw it would be for most people. The 300% tariffs like the nukes today. And then what did China settle out with? Well, China settled out with somewhere around 55% tariffs last year. And now we're looking at this peace deal, and it seems similar. In my opinion, if the rumors are true, and Trump is adamantly denying it, there is a 10-point peace plan that Tehran has laid out on the table, that Trump has blatantly said on his Truth Social is a workable foundational basis to launch from when it comes to negotiations. Now, CNN took that and they ran with it, and they said, well, Trump gave in, this is what he agreed to. Trump's furious at CNN and said, that's not true, we're working with this as a basis, and that's fake news. And now Trump's calling CNN a criminal organization and accusing them of possibly being guilty of some sort of a media crime or something like that. So I'm going to cover that because it's interesting. The timeline of events here is interesting. And once again, when you really break it down, the timeline of events here and what's unfolding and what's happening today, it still manages to defy actual logic, and in my opinion points to, once again, still an uncomfortable truth when it comes to just how all of this unfolded in the Middle East and what it truly means for us as a country going forward when it comes to geopolitics and foreign affairs. So to recap real quickly, of course, this all started with President Donald Trump. This all started back February 20th. And it's important to note this. I want to say this, and I will be saying this multiple times. Pre-February 28th, the Strait of Hormuz was wide open. We strike Tehran, and we do it at the behest of Israel. No ifs, ands, or buts about that, by the way. That is still not debatable today. Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, and Mike Johnson all confirmed it. That Israel provided them with their own intel, stating that they were going to strike Iran if we didn't make a move. So they were giving us the courtesy of telling us that, because by then we had already moved 50% of our Navy to the Persian Gulf, and we had an established Air Force presence there, and military bases around the area were increasingly more active with some of our soldiers because, well, Bibi Netanyahu insisted that we go there. So we were there. Once they lured us in, they then come in and they say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're striking Tehran tonight if you don't strike first. This forces our hand. So we strike Tehran. Immediately, chaos ensues. Tehran is struck several times. In 36 hours, we take out something to the effect of 49 of their top most prominent generals, political figures, and their religious holy leader, Ali Khamenei. The son survives, apparently, though nobody has actually seen a video of him thus far. He reportedly is still alive, possibly in a comatose state or with a ruptured liver, missing leg, whatever. Mojtaba Khamenei survives. The regime limps on. Though we take out dozens of their leaders in a 36-hour time period, the regime doesn't effectively change, technically. It is the same kind of people replacing the ones that we're killing. It's like a Hydra monster, this regime. And it's why I've made the comparison that in the Middle East, getting involved in these wars is the equivalent of standing in quicksand while trying to trim the bushes outside your house. You will only sink further down as the bushes grow back, perhaps even more quickly than you imagined. And that's what regime change truly is, especially when you are refusing to do what is necessary to effect true regime change, which is, of course, boots on the ground, which is, of course, political poison here in the United States, with midterms being the main constraint here looming over the president's head. Nevertheless, we take out all of their members. We continue to make threats. We continue to strike them. Israel joins in. And what we don't expect, for some reason it seems we don't expect this at least, Iran does. And what they do, what we're not expecting it seems, was they shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Something that they had done, by the way, in the 70s. This should have been easily accounted for and predicted, but it doesn't seem like it was predicted by our Pentagon whatsoever or our military intel. They do it anyway. On top of that, they go scorched earth, something that Pete Hegseth himself even admitted that they thought was a chance would happen, but they didn't think it was all that likely. And it turns out it was. Iran goes scorched earth and starts striking all of their neighbors. And all along on this channel, I've been saying how smart of a strategy that was for Iran. However immoral you may call it, because certainly it's not right. It is immoral. None of these neighbors that were being struck, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, or Beirut, is it, and Dubai, etc. They didn't ask to be involved in this, but Iran knew that, and Iran knew that striking them would apply more tension, create more tension in the Middle East, and apply more diplomatic pressure on President Donald Trump to second guess himself when it comes to this war and the consequences of engaging in this war on Israel's behalf in Iran. And it does work to some degree. We saw President Donald Trump act rather irrationally at times throughout this war, as we saw on Easter Sunday, right? And that's kind of what leads me up to this. We see the same strategies, like I say, to expect on this channel. I've been telling you to expect this to unfold this way. The same tactics, I shouldn't say strategy, because it doesn't seem like we had a very good strategy going into this, but certainly Trump is good at weaponizing and using tactics to stir the pot, to rattle the cages. He does do that very well. And we saw the same tactics employed that he used with China. So we see the whole, oh, well, we're going to do a ceasefire because there's peace talks. Meanwhile, the IRGC denies it the entire time. He says, no, it's happening. 5-day ceasefire, it's happening. It's going very well. Iran says it's not going well. We don't know what he's talking about. There are no peace talks. He says, no, not only are they happening, and I don't know what they're talking about, but they're going so well, I want to extend the peace talks now, 10-day ceasefire. Iran says, we still don't know what he's talking about. We're talking with this administration, but there's no negotiations happening. We can't seem to meet up anywhere in mutual negotiation here. We are coming from two very different points. Your president is crazy. We don't know what he's talking about. Trump says, nope, it's happening. It's going very well. 10-day ceasefire in full effect, but Iran better make a deal by the end of these 10 days. It's no different than how he handled the China tariffs. Then all of a sudden we see Trump lose his mind. And he does this a couple of times, but most notably on Easter Sunday, when many Americans, no doubt, are getting dressed for church to attend Resurrection Sunday. At somewhere around 8:30 a.m., Trump posts, Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. Now, this, of course, offends Christians. It offends conservatives. It offends the liberals, who are going to be offended no matter what Trump says. And it offends Muslims. It offends everyone. Probably one of his most controversial social media posts to date. And this is Trump, in essence, kind of throwing a fit. And I've explained why on this channel before, but I'm going to explain it again. I see some chats coming in. The Waits Experience. Welcome, man. Evening, gentlemen. He says, welcome. Welcome back, man. Appreciate you being here. Samuel Westall, welcome back as well. You're one of the newer subscribers here from London. Appreciate you being here. I'm sure you're actually, this is, again, the foreign affairs stuff, definitely. If you're going to pay attention to U.S. politics, this is the moment where you want to be paying attention, right? Because certainly you're closer to the action than we are, especially when we saw Iran launch that ballistic missile at, what was it, Diego Garcia, right? One of the British controlled islands. Drew Donato 1608 says, do you know anything more about the 10-point proposal? Yeah, I'm going to cover that. Trump is kind of, nobody is essentially talking or denying that there's a 10-point proposal for peace coming from Iran. But there's a discrepancy being created between mainstream media, especially liberal mainstream media, CNN, who's saying that Trump has completely capitulated to this. And now Trump himself, who admittedly on True Social, like I said, and I'll read his True Social post in a little bit here, he admittedly said, or at least he framed it from that perspective, that it's a good, workable, foundational basis to continue on negotiating from. He did say something like that, and it's assumed he was mentioning the 10-day or the 10-point proposal. So CNN took that and ran with it and said, well, he's given in. These are the 10 points that Iran has insisted on. Trump's given in. Trump's furious about this now, and he said, I did not give in. That's fake news. So we're going to cover that. I'm going to dive into that a little bit, but I do have all the 10 points pulled up. And I want to make some strong logical points about those 10 points, along with some of what we knew were the 15 points originally proposed to Iran from the U.S., because that happened as well. And we still don't know all 15 points, actually. I don't think they were ever made public, but a few of them were leaked, and they were major ones, and Iran turned them down and offered this 10-point proposal, which now apparently is a workable foundation. So I'm going to get to that in 1 second, actually. Anyways, Trump threatens this. The markets go crazy. Oil futures go insane. Yesterday, not much happens, right? Not much happens. Mainstream Iranian news sources say that they're completely rejecting all peace offers yesterday. They go on record saying this. They're shutting down everything. Today, everything goes bonkers. I mean, everything, right? The tension's just building. From the second I woke up today, I usually try not to check my phone immediately when I wake up. I just rolled over, picked up my phone. I had to see what was happening because I was expecting a lot to happen, and it did. And a lot of stuff happening might not even be reported mainstream, which is what I'm going to go over. But one of the things that was really getting scary for Americans especially is the fact that physical oil prices today, not oil futures, physical oil prices per barrel were nearing record highs at $150 a barrel because of this Strait of Hormuz crisis. So the tension was just hitting an all-time record high in the Middle East with this war, with what was happening. People were convinced that this was going to go nuclear. I didn't think that. It's not a net zero chance that it wasn't going to go nuclear, by the way. I actually think that there was a small chance of that. I wouldn't have ever ruled it out entirely. But I think there was a lot of fear-mongering going on for sure from the far right, which I label myself as, to be honest with you. But I did not take part in that. This was not, I had very little expectations of this going nuclear. But $150 it reached almost per barrel for physical oil. On top of that, what we also saw, Trump, of course, threatened that it would be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day. And one of the things we saw in Iran today was essentially the Iranian people answering Trump's original request back in February after he began striking Tehran. He had requested that this was the chance. He made the statement. He said, "This is the Iranian people's chance. Rise up now and take your country back." Well, they didn't, and that was a huge letdown. And it seems to be it was sort of one of the promises being made to Trump that this would occur, basing it off of the fact that, according to reports, roughly 30,000 of them had already attempted a revolution and a possible coup just about a month or two prior to that. And many were reportedly executed for it. So the speculation going into this was, if you just, and this is definitely, it seems like this is something that perhaps Prime Minister Netanyahu from Israel himself sold Trump on, would be if you just strike them from the skies and damage the regime beyond repair, take out as many of their leaders as possible, the people might be willing to rise up again and finish it off for us. No boots on the ground needed, Mr. Trump. This seems to kind of be what Trump was under the impression of, was that it was going to be another 48-hour at most Venezuela 2.0 operation, extreme precision and efficiency, minimal involvement, just strike them from the air. Our U.S. Air Force obviously is second to none in this world. Strike them from the air, have the Navy on standby, but boots on the ground won't be needed. The people will rise up and do the rest of the work. And of course, that didn't happen. Then we, of course, try to lean into the Kurds, which is a group of people that we tried to use based out of Iraq to create civil wars and to sort of be our meat shields and our indentured servants. We provide them with weapons and we point them in the right direction and say, have at it. Well, this time the Kurds turn us down. Our NATO allies, Trump starts getting desperate, it seems, enraged at our NATO allies for not helping. But they say, no, this is not our war. We didn't want this. And so now what we saw today was the Iranian people finally rose up. And you can speculate. Perhaps it was the IRGC going door to door with militants, threatening their lives otherwise, and basically insisting that they do this. That's certainly a valid speculation. But it's not unreasonable also to speculate that when you start destroying schools in Iran, a school at least, full of children, and you kill over 140 schoolgirls, they claim by mistake. First our U.S. government tried to tell us Iran struck their own school. Then it's, well, maybe it was an Israeli missile. Now it's like, well, we don't even know. But when we strike their schools, when we strike their bridges, and when we essentially threaten to destroy their electrical grid, their power plants, their way of life, more of their bridges used for transportation. Israel was striking some of these prominent religious buildings today. When it turns out you threaten their entire way of life and their entire city, which will ruin their quality of life, it seems like that has a rally around the flag effect with the people. And this is my speculation on this. I don't know. I can't say for sure. The fact that I saw children doing this today was a little startling to me and does suggest that maybe there was some threats happening from the IRGC regime in order to force the people to do this. But they rose up and they started forming lines across their bridges, waving the Iranian flag in an attempt to deter President Donald Trump and Israel. Of course, Israel being the one way less likely to care about them doing this at all and strike anyway, because they don't value the lives of the Iranians, truthfully. But they started doing this. They started lining across bridges. They started circling around power plants, men, women, and children. And this was being posted all over social media today. And reportedly, behind the scenes, Trump was furious about this, realizing how bad this would look now if we decided to still take out these targets, which would potentially then mean the death of a lot of what we would consider to be innocent Iranian citizens who are actively protesting this war now and actively protesting the U.S. and Israel strikes on their power plants and bridges. So that wound up happening. They wound up rising up, but not in the way that Trump wanted them to, not in the way Israel wanted them to. And whether or not it was forced, we can debate about that. It doesn't really matter. What matters is it happened. This coinciding with physical oil hitting $150 a barrel also just wound up leading to the main story. And this is what I want to discuss. I want to discuss this and discuss it from a critical and hopefully logical perspective when it comes to what all transpired today, what unfolded today, and what kind of questions we should all be asking today. So I'm going to get into that 1 second. Let me see here. Trump has his hand on the red button, and I hope he sends a strong Western message, says Samuel Westall. Man, I hope the opposite. If you're talking about nukes, I really, truly hope the opposite. Time to short sell. What would you short sell, Samuel? What would you be short selling? Yeah, Drew asked what short sell what? Yeah, what would you short sell in regards to this? We'll have to see. I mean, oil right now is I'm going to cover that in a second. Oil futures are down. So, let's get into it. So, Pakistani Prime Minister. The Pakistani Prime Minister comes into play here, right? And this is truly where we kind of see human shields in Iran, says the Waits Experience. I won't argue with you on that. It doesn't actually matter. It does matter, I guess, if you want to be more bleeding heart about it, but I'm not going to be bleeding heart too much about anything. What I want to discuss is just the fact that it happened, and it was a deterrent for President Trump, and he reportedly behind the scenes furious about it. So good things are happening, says Quagula. Let's hope so. Let's hope that this is coming to an end now, though I have serious doubts about that. I'm about to explain why. So today, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif from Pakistan, he steps in and he winds up pleading with President Donald Trump, according to reports here and according to the post that I can actually see from him. Let me pull that up. Yes, so he updated this today. Let me go on his page actually. 2611. Yeah, so he's been speaking with a lot of the Middle Easterners, Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince and Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, and they've been collectively working towards peace. A report actually was coming in, and this was, of course, I viewed it as a political stunt. I didn't even cover it here on this channel, but this has been long reported that Egypt, Pakistan, and one other country, was it Lebanon? One other country, 3 countries in the Middle East were getting involved where they were supposed to be holding some sort of a convention for the U.S. and Iran to attend and hash out the differences and work towards a ceasefire and peace deal. Now, J.D. Vance was reportedly supposed to be flying out to Pakistan to attend this and in order to sort of take charge and mediate these peace talks. And, of course, I viewed this as a political stunt because, obviously, for J.D. Vance, who's 41 years old and actually, I think, technically a millennial then, this looks terrible for him when it comes to his future opportunity to run for president, because now he's involved in this administration that has violated its campaign promises, and there's no way around that, right? It violated no new wars, and you can call this an excursion. You can buy into the propaganda and the rhetoric slop being put out there about what this was or wasn't, but this is a violation of Trump's campaign promise. Our involvement on February 28th, starting February 28th and on, was a direct violation of his campaign promise. There's no way around that. And so J.D. Vance, understanding this, has been very quiet about this all. Very quiet. And it seems to have actually irked Trump that he's so quiet about it. He quietly says he'll back the president no matter what, but kind of openly also says, well, I'm not really in favor of it all that much. So Vance was supposed to go out to Pakistan, and this was supposed to be done on Vance's case to save some of his image, obviously, so he can run for president in 2028 and at least be able to claim, well, I didn't really support it all that much, but it's my job as the vice president to support the president in all of his actions. I advised him in the direction I would go, and then I supported him regardless. And then I went out there and brokered peace. That's obviously what they were going for. This didn't happen, of course. J.D. Vance is not in Pakistan, to my knowledge. But the Pakistani Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif, reportedly pleaded with President Donald Trump over the last 24 hours to agree to a ceasefire deal extension and reevaluate peace between the U.S. and Iran. And this is what we saw today from President Donald Trump on Truth Social at 6:32 p.m. He said, based on conversations with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran's agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. Almost all of the points of past contention have been agreed to between the United States and Iran, but a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated. So this goes out with an hour and a half to spare on the deadline that Trump pushed on them, which of course was going to be today at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is basically essentially what kicked off everything spiraling today when it comes to the fake news from CNN, the speculation. The fog of war is still very much in play here. So there's apparently fake news going on, speculation of what to expect in the future. There's an Israel element, and there's a lot of questions regarding Iran's 10-point peace plan here, how much Trump will agree to it, etc. Now, Tehran put out this statement. This is directly from Tehran today, and it says, on behalf of the Islamic Republic of Iran, I express gratitude and appreciation for my dear brothers, HE Prime Minister of Pakistan Sharif and Field Marshal Munir, for their tireless efforts to end the war in the region. In response to the brotherly request of PM Sharif, Prime Minister Sharif, in his tweet, and considering the request by the U.S. for negotiations based on its 15-point proposal, as well as the announcement by the President of the United States about acceptance of the general framework of Iran's 10-point proposal as a basis for negotiations, I hereby declare on behalf of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, if attacks against Iran are halted, our powerful armed forces will cease their defensive operations. For a period of 2 weeks, safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces and with due consideration of technical limitations. Syed Abbas I never know how to say that. I always make it wind up sounding like it's like Asian. Aragachi, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Islamic Republic of Iran. So that's their official statement to match Trump's. Now, since then, more missiles have been launched. So some ceasefire. But the thing is, it's being launched at Israel. And that is Israel is, first of all, notorious for breaking ceasefires, which is a problem I'm going to address later. And second of all, Israel and Iran haven't flushed out all of their issues yet, though Israel has agreed to side with us on this 2-week extension. Iran is notorious for wanting to get one last gotcha strike in. So it seems like that's what's occurring right now. Nevertheless, after these announcements, Brent crude oil futures plummeted by almost 15% so far, down to $94.49 from where they started off today at $111.39. And regular crude oil futures, which is more directly associated with American market and oil, also plummeted close to 15% as well, down from a high today of 117.56 to now 96.46. So cheaper gas may be on the horizon in the next few days or weeks. Thank God. That's at least going to be somewhat of a reprieve. But what I want to do is break down these 15 and 10-point peace plans, what I was able to find about the 15-point peace plan, because I wasn't able to find all 15 points now when it was first put out back in March, and still not today. But Iran's 10-point peace plan is very open and out there in public, so I will be fully going over that one. And so I'm going to cover that in 1 second, but I don't want to miss any of the chats here. So I see Lazy Acres says 2 weeks, great, right after his healthcare plan drops. More importantly, JD is giving credence to a fascist Viktor Orban. Well, I don't know what when it comes to JD Vance, who are you referencing when it comes to the fascist? You're not talking about Trump, are you? Lifeguard has excellent impression. Thank you, Lifeguard. I appreciate you. Welcome, by the way. Good to have you back in here. Lifeguard, I know you'll be thrilled by this, hopefully. The Waits experience says, I don't know if Iran is going to let bygones be bygones with what happened to their supreme leader. That's a problem, and I'm going to discuss that. And also, Israel is going to be a potential problem as well, because they're all going to have very different goals. And that's really what has to hash through now in this region. Hey, bunch of names. Welcome in, man. Bunch of names says, if we make a peace agreement with Iran, how long will it take for them to rebuild and seek revenge? This is the problem. And it's basically a Cold War now, in a way. But the Middle East has always been this way, too. It's always going to be a tense region, which, again, is why I always push for the Monroe Doctrine. Always. The Monroe Doctrine. You know who made a good point today? I want to play this, actually. I'll play this right now. Let me find it. I actually shared it on my page, and I got my speaker rigged up so you can hear it. A rare Benny Johnson W. Benny Johnson, I've always suspected is well, I won't say it, but regardless, rare Benny Johnson W. And it coincides perfectly with what I say all the time on this channel, Monroe Doctrine. A direct quote from, I believe, John Quincy Adams. We should not be, I'm summarizing it, paraphrasing it. We should not be getting involved in Middle East and foreign affairs in pursuit of slaying monsters. Well, Benny Johnson kind of echoes it today in the first few seconds here of his show.
We don't know what's going to happen, right? We're not sure what's going to happen. I'm just going to say this. Blessed are the peacemakers. I pray for peace here. That's my prayer. I said it publicly this morning, and I'll say it right now and again. I pray for peace. We wish to be an uplifting movement and a movement that obviously shows the potential of Western civilization and Christendom and the words of Christ. And so let's go there right now this morning. Matthew 5:9, start of the show. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God, from Jesus Christ on the Sermon on the Mount. This is what I pray happens. Both J.D. Vance and senior administration officials are saying that Iran is efforting a deal right now to be made with the United States of America, and I pray that happens.
Real quick before I get to the part that I really agree with here, I want to recognize this real fast. There is something a little bit unsettling when it comes to how Trump's been acting over the past couple of days and weeks. I think the Easter post of him just praising Allah and saying to open the fucking Strait of Hormuz, calling Iran crazy bastards, and then of course threatening civilizational destruction. It doesn't actually, I'm not a bleeding heart liberal. I'm a social and fiscal conservative, and I'm pretty actually far right to the point of where I turn off even a lot of moderate Republicans in what I believe. So don't take me for someone who's soft, but I gotta say this. Recently, I have to raise my eyebrow at the rhetoric Trump is spewing out. And I have to coincide that with the company that he tends to be keeping, it seems, when it comes to, once again, he's pointing to Mark Levin's radio show and telling us we should listen to Mark Levin, who I guess he's making out to be the new face of MAGA, right? Ben Shapiro he likes. Lindsey Graham he golfs with all the time. The senator of, what is it, South Carolina? God forbid I get it wrong again. Last time I said North Carolina, I think, and some chatter went, wow, shows how much you know. He's from South Carolina, you fucking idiot. Okay. Regardless, Senator Lindsey Graham, a senator. So much to focus on in his state, yet he lives at least part-time in Israel and Ukraine. Can't really decide which one he likes better. But it certainly isn't South Carolina. It seems like he wants to live anywhere but his own state. How many times does he talk about dealing with state issues? Hardly ever. Every time I see him talking, he's talking about war for Israel and for Ukraine. But Trump loves him and golfs with him and considers him a dear friend. On top of that, you look at that, what is her name? Paula White, the religious leader nutjob, a female pastor, however that's supposed to be a thing, evangelical nutjob, right? And she's constantly in Trump's ear. She made a comparison in prayer the other day, I think was it on Easter or around Easter, Good Friday perhaps, where she said, you're a lot like Jesus. I'm paraphrasing. She didn't say that directly. But she told the story of Jesus coming down and being more of a maverick, I guess, to summarize what she said, coming down, changing traditions, trying to restore the world, trying to save his people, being ultimately arrested and persecuted for it. They killed Jesus. They tried to kill Trump, she says. It's like, what else is this lady? Who is he around right now? And what kind of a God complex could Trump be developing by only being around an echo chamber of yes men and religious zealot nutjob sycophants? To where now we see Trump. I've never, ever seen Trump be this crazy before. In the past, it's always been amusing. It's always been actually what I consider to be the antidote to woke and to pussy, feminized society. But it's almost at a point. It actually truly is at a point right now. And again, this is not to be bleeding heart, but it's too far. It's too far, and you have to ask yourself, why is this happening? And I think it truly does come down to the fact that Trump, as a populist, rather than an ideologue, rather than someone with actual convictions that are concrete, that he'll live and die by no matter what, that's not Trump. Trump's a populist. We can use that to our advantage, but only if he's acting in our interest and not being surrounded by people who have an agenda and know how to weaponize his own ego against him, which is clearly what we're seeing. And this is not to exonerate Trump from any of his mistakes. Trump is his own person at the end of the day, no matter what. He's ultimately responsible for what he does and doesn't do. But nevertheless, he's around an echo chamber, clearly of yes men, and he's not an ideologue. He has no actual moral convictions. That much should be clear. And so what we're seeing now is Trump doesn't have much of an identity. His identity is what he is told by people around him. His identity is the media, which is why, despite the fact that he rambles and rants and rages at liberal mainstream media, he's constantly always eager to share the once-in-a-blue-moon positive stories about him. Because secretly, Trump, no doubt, has a desire to be praised for his efforts, to be recognized for them, and to be covered fairly. And on top of that, I think there's a fantasy Trump probably has where he wakes up one day to nothing but good press because he has done so well that it's now undeniable and all the media must recognize it. I think that that's a thing with Trump. He's always been that kind of a guy. He used to prank call newspapers when he was a New York real estate guy and give them false stories on purpose for his own amusement. But he always cared about what was in the papers. He always cares about image, perception, populism. And so because of that, it seems like people have figured out, more so this term than his last term, where they fought against Trump's tactics and his rattling of the cages. It seems like now people have figured out Trump in some way. And they figured out you don't attack him and his ego. That's how you lose. Trump is way too good at fighting that kind of a fight. You can't beat him in that realm. What you do is you sing his praises, and then you suggestively speak about what would be smart for him to do going forward. And he's more inclined to listen rather than kick you out and never deal with you again. And how is this evidenced? Well, it's evidenced in the fact that MAGA is unrecognizable. And the people he's telling us to look to are, like I said, Mark Levin, Laura Loomer. He calls Laura Loomer 3 times a day. Jigsaw. She looks like Jigsaw, right? Laura Loomer brags about being an Ashkenazi Jew with a high IQ. Laura Loomer he calls 3 times a day. But he's too busy to take Marjorie Taylor Greene's calls. You know why? Because she criticized him. Alex Jones says, the last time I met with Trump was in 2015. You know why? Because he criticizes Trump. And so it's very evident what's actually happening right now. And I think that's what's forming Trump or helping to rapidly form him into what appears to be a crazed, mad king type of ruler who has a developing God complex. Because who else on Easter would say that? Who else on Easter would make that kind of a post and say, Tuesday's Power Plant Day and Bridge Day all wrapped in one in Iran, there will be nothing like it. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch, praise be to Allah. No Easter post. No Easter post from Trump like we saw 2 years ago, where he mentions Christ being resurrected and conquering death. Something that I found inspirational time. None of that. Not for Easter. Instead, we got that. That was the post that we got for Easter. So that's a problem. And I think truthfully, it's such a problem that it is forcing a lot of people to understand that America might not be on the right side of things anymore when it comes to benevolency, like I've covered on this channel. I've called us a benevolent empire. When it comes to the world and its perspective, that is what I've always considered us to be. Because despite all of our power, despite our superior military, we've never done things from a really overly aggressive or maniacal way. But recently, some of Trump's True Social posts, of course, which never came into fruition. These did not. Civilizational destruction has yet to occur, and it seems like there's a good chance now, of course, it won't occur. It might have been a bluff all along. But the fact that he's even willing to make such threats now on social media should frighten you. And it should suggest, in all honesty, that perhaps we've lost a little bit of sovereignty in the world and a little bit of our benevolence. And that is not a good thought. And I think right now what we're living through is a time where it's a test of your conscience to some degree. I am all for crushing our enemies. I believe that's what you should do. But at the same time, the tactics being employed here, what we're seeing, the narrative being spun, the rhetoric being given to us by this administration, you should be questioning that. And you should be asking yourself, if you're okay with it, why are you okay with it? I'm going to let Benny Johnson finish up here. Then I'll take a look at some of your chats before I get back into everything unfolding today.
We don't know what's going to happen. President Trump has promised today at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that the entire nation. It's just not. I'm not in the briefing room. I'm not in.
Fast forward a
the
little bit there
security
because we know what's
clearances.
happening now.
I haven't been making these decisions. It's not real perspective of this program, the long-time perspective of this program. I don't want these battles. I just want to get this off my chest.
Rare Benny Johnson W right here.
Our battle is not Sunni and Shia. It's not Israel or Qatar. That's never been what I wanted America First to be about. I mean, even like some of the stuff that's done in our own hemisphere, I kind of think it's almost more permissible to say like Venezuela's a couple miles away, Cuba's a couple miles away. We should control our own hemisphere. But
it's almost as if Benny Johnson watches American Advocates right here. How many times, if anybody here is a loyal viewer, how many times do I say that and talk about the Monroe Doctrine?
Even beyond that, like focusing inward on our borders, that's MAGA. That's America First. The pothole on my street is more important than making a new pothole in the Middle East.
How many times do I talk about the condition of our roads here in this country on this channel? Benny Johnson is a secret viewer. You can't convince me otherwise. Welcome, Eddie. I see you. I'm going to read the chats in a second, guys.
This has been the opinion of this show. There are obviously a lot of traps that have been laid in the Middle East for every great civilization. From Alexander to Napoleon. The Middle East is to the British Empire. The Middle East becomes a trap for great empires. The Greeks, the Romans, the crucifixion of Christ. Yes. How many empires must fall in this sandpit?
Excellent point. And again, it's why our founding fathers understood this and recognized we should not be getting involved there. It's why James Monroe created and drafted the Monroe Doctrine. Our foreign policy, our foreign affairs, what we consider our foreign affairs should be all within our Western Hemisphere. 2 oceans separate us from that world on both sides of our continent and our hemisphere. We should be focusing north to south, not east to west. Bottom line, it's why I preach the Monroe Doctrine so much. And it is. The Middle East is the sandpit, the death trap of all great empires. And that could include America in the future if we're not careful. We need to find a way to get out of that region and stay out of it. We shouldn't be involved with it whatsoever. It goes against all logic. I'll take a look at some chats. I'm going to get back on track here now after that. The damn road, says John Boy. Tell me about it, man. Every time you hit a pothole, and this is why I talk about roads so much on here, just understand something. When you see news like us going to war at Israel's behest and bombing Tehran and spending, where are we at now? $44,236,740,000 in the Middle East so far, and more than that, in all honesty. That's a generous estimate right there. We've likely spent closer to $50 billion in all honesty. When you recognize that we're spending that much there, but there are 18 potholes that you hit on your way to work every single morning that slowly just destroy the undercarriage of your car. Sometimes they give you a flat tire if the pothole is bad enough. Just understand something. That tells you all you need to know about representation in this country and how much your government and your elected officials care about you. They don't. They don't care about you. That's why the roads suck. And it's not just in my state. Anybody in chat tell me, do your roads suck too? Do you have numerous potholes in your road? I used to be an Uber driver, and I used to pick up people from out of state. I'd hit a pothole, I'd make a comment, and they'd say, you should see the roads in Texas. They're even worse. You should see the roads in Tennessee. They're terrible. You should see the roads in New York. They're horrendous. You should see the roads in Canada. Actually, I don't even think that's true. I don't think I ever heard one about Canada, but I wouldn't be surprised. Regardless, I heard that a lot as an Uber driver. And it's because all across the country, we're not prioritized. The Roman Empire knew that they should put pride into their roads because every citizen had to deal with the roads. The roads were a direct they were a direct perception and image to the people about the condition of the empire. That's why I harp about roads all of the time. So I like that Benny Johnson brings it up, and I like that he discusses the Middle East being an absolute sand trap pit of destruction and doom. I'll take a look at some chats now, and then get back right on with the story here about what's happening with this 10-point peace plan. I saw that, the Waits experience. Lindsey Graham was spotted in Disneyland. He has no children or grandchildren, but he was in Disneyland eating a Mickey Mouse ice cream frozen popsicle. I saw that. It's almost like he was celebrating something last month. I wonder what Lindsey Graham, the neocon conservative warmongering motherfucker, would have been celebrating last month in Disneyland with no children or grandchildren. Gee, I can only imagine. The Graham-Trump relationship is very difficult for me to understand, and it bothers me a lot, says Lifeguard. Me too. Me too. Graham's not even a good friend to Trump, by the way. That should be noted. He's not even been a good friend. He just uses Trump to fulfill his warmonger neocon agenda and then pretends to like him. Bryant T.S. Pross, however, Bryant. We'll go by Bryant. We will see. At least from my perspective, Trump has at least twice launched surprise strikes during peace negotiations, and Iran's command is not necessarily centralized, all stable. Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. You are soft, Lib. Any interest in ceasefire negotiations? Who, me? I'm not a liberal, and yes, I'm interested in ceasefire negotiations, yes. He wants, Bunch Name says, he wants to run the U.S. like a business. Yeah, that's true. That's his strength and weakness, too. Obama and Bush would have pushed that button, says Quagula. Bush probably would have. I don't know if Obama would have. Obama, to be honest with you, we have to call it fair here. Obama would have never gotten involved in an Iran war. Obama turned down Israel on that idea, actually. So did Biden. So this wouldn't have actually, I hate to say this as a social and fiscal conservative, but Obama would have never gotten involved, actually. And there would have been Marines on the ground, says Quagula. Definitely true. I will agree that Bush would have pushed the button because he was stupid, but Obama absolutely not. He was very weathered and understanding president, says Fix Shet. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Obama was a great president whatsoever. I think he pretty much destroyed parts of our economy, especially with his stupid Obamacare. But if there's one undeniable fact about Obama, it's absolutely that he was much better than Republican presidents are or were at telling Israel no. Eddie says, you were right, American advocates. I won't take the Lord's name in vain, but damn it, you are gifted. Yes, hey, I'm a prodigy, okay? I mean, I just, I call things the way I see them. I analyze things, and I make predictions on this channel that oftentimes come true. The secret is to predict every possible outcome, and then you can never be wrong. But the ceasefire deal extension is one specifically of two outcomes I said would happen, and I said it was very likely, and that's for a reason. It's a pattern with Trump, and truthfully, it's also when you understand the geopolitics of the region and this war and what's happening, you understand that Trump was bluffing every step of the way here, and Iran wasn't falling for it as much as Trump would have liked, I think. No, I can't do Joe Biden. I'd have to practice it, maybe. They have to have unique voices for me to really be able to do the impressions. Pothole Pete butt plug could fix the problem, says Stewart. I hope so. Whatever that means. You're wrong, so you can't compare potholes to a war. We have to fix our own country, defend ourselves, protect ourselves, and yet fix the potholes? No comparison. No, you should ask yourself why the potholes exist all of the time and only seem to ever get worse, not better. You should ask yourself why the quality and condition of your roads are terrible. It makes a statement. You just don't want to believe it, Mark. Bunch of names. Yearly road upkeep doesn't keep up anymore. It gets progressively worse I just said it. See, and you're right, absolutely. It gets progressively worse every year. There's a street near me they've been working on for years. Yep. Not to mention, they've even cheapened out on how they do it. They oftentimes now they've just given up on repaving roads in favor of just filling in with the, bunch of names. I don't even know if you know what it's called, but you've no doubt seen it. Their answer to the potholes now, at least in the state I live in, is they come up with shovels and some asphalt rocks and they just fill them in real quick. And it's like, gee, that's gonna solve the problem for 30 days before cars driving over it and massive semis drive over it again and just crater it in once more as the loose asphalt rocks you just shoveled into the hole go flying everywhere over time. How about you just fucking repave the pothole? They used to cut out sections of the pothole and then repave over the whole thing. Or they would They would just say, fuck it. Close down the whole lane for summer. We're going to repave the whole thing. They hardly ever do it. They repave the roads where I'm at now once every 5 years, maybe, if I'm lucky. I was a child when Obama was president. What do you know? Says Stewart04. Yeah, so? You think I wasn't paying attention to politics? Obama being president was the year I was in high school. I actually had to go watch his stupid inauguration because, oh my God, it's so historic. A black man has been voted in as president. Do you know what this implies for our society now? It's such a tear-jerking, beautiful moment. All of the stupid white women teachers in my school. Oh, we're going to watch this one. I doubt they watched Trump's inauguration in 2016 at that school, by the way. I doubt it. But for the first black man in 2009, I was in high school. Everyone go to the school library. It's a historical day. A black man's our president now. Yeah, I remember. And I was paying attention to politics then because I was in high school. I was old enough to understand it. Actually, high school is when I started discovering prominent speakers. I was learning about Austrian economics. I was watching, and actually one of the contributing factors to me getting into politics was, believe it or not, WWE. My favorite pro wrestler is Kane, who's now the mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, and turns out to be not only a 7-foot-tall monstrous man, but also a really smart guy, really smart. And I watched him go on a show because I watched everything with Kane back then on YouTube. YouTube was emerging in the mid-2000s. And he went on a show. He barely fit in the elevator on the way up, and then he gets out, has to duck under the elevator, and sits down, looks ginormous in his chair, and he's discussing Austrian economics and what the values of libertarianism are and what he should and shouldn't be forced to do as a citizen of the United States. I very distinctly remember that show. I also, because of that show, wound up discovering Alex Jones, getting into conspiracy theories, of course, and then really getting involved in politics. It was actually throughout my early and mid-20s where I deliberately shut down that side of myself because I wanted to avoid politics in pursuit of chasing dreams and goals that I had. And I recognized a very true statement that it is, truthfully, better to be a fisherman than to meddle in the politics of man. So for a long time in my early and mid-20s, I shut that side of me down. But actually in my teen years, I was more involved in politics as a result of a number of different factors. My school being one of them. But whatnot. So I was still paying attention in high school. Drew Donato 1608 says, Stuart, you're an idiot. Yeah, I mean, don't patronize me, Stuart, honestly. There's no reason to come in here. I don't know if you look like some old boomer. You don't need to patronize me just because I'm a younger guy. I think Trump will do a 360 on the negotiations. He never sticks to his word. It's actually, Jimbo, it's not Trump that I'm worried about. I'm going to discuss that in a couple minutes here probably, if I can get on. I'm going to try and finish reading your guys' chats. Jimbo, you mean a 180. It's Stuart. Stuart, you're just here to patronize everyone, though, aren't you? But technically right, Jimbo. A 360 would mean a full circle, and you'd be facing the same direction still. A 180 is when you do a complete turnaround and face the other way. He's not wrong. Hey, welcome, Adamonicus. You haven't been here in a long time, man. Good to have you back. He says, anyone see anything about a bill in New York to make the state liable for potholes in the roads? Is that where you're from, Adamonicus? It's New York, by the way, so there will never be. Some states actually, now that I think about it, some states, if you can prove a pothole gave you a flat tire, you can go to a state-approved mechanic shop and pay for it up front, and then take the state. Prove that you had to pay for it and the state should cover it. Some states are that bad. New York might be one of those. 2009 Lifeguard says, that's the best Mickey Mouse impression ever. Ha ha, ha ha. What the fuck is going on around here? Ha ha. That's like the South Park Mickey Mouse, the Lifeguard. Florida is giving the death penalty for pedophiles. Some states are doing work. That's true. Bunch of names. For car damage, if that passes, every idiot would ram into the potholes for insurance money. I mean, it was a huge achievement for the black community considering the history of their culture in this country. Can you hold it against them for celebrating? I guess not. I don't really have an upfront issue with a black man becoming president, but I'm also just not a bleeding heart liberal. So when every white woman teacher in my school was like crying about this moment, even at age 13, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with these retards? Kane is the brother of The Undertaker, both from Houston, where I'm from, says Stewart. Is Kane from Houston? Kane was born on a military base, I thought, over in Spain. Quagula says, we watched the Obama inauguration and were anti-vax at... Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, that's not how it was for me. Jimbo says, my bad. Yeah, it's a 180-degree turn, man. Stop everything. 199 super chat tariff from 2009 Lifeguard says, one correction from last night. I'm 56, not 59. Sorry, Lifeguard. I just assumed that the stress that is induced on you from watching my stream discuss the war from my depressed millennial perspective of never being able to own a home or never being able to build generational wealth because the boomers fucked up my generation and Gen Z beyond reproach. I assume that it aged you faster. I assume that's happening to all of us at this point. Millennials are supposed to be aging better than Gen Z, and I'm a millennial close to the Gen Z line. And lately, the past 2 years, for a while, I felt like I was aging good. The past 2 years, I'm like, what is happening to me? What is happening to me? I'm starting to look like a grandpa. It's all the stress, Lifeguard. It's all the stress. Mo Morty says, fuck Trump. I didn't see that. That shouldn't be hidden. I hate that those are hidden. My moderator, Glenn's been slacking. I'm going to have to appoint a second moderator in this chat to cover for when Glenn is, who knows what my moderator's doing. He's always had a weakness for women. I bet you there's some girl he's infatuated with. And I bet you she's a liberal, even though he's a conservative, Glenn. I bet you she's a liberal, so he can't watch my streams anymore. He's probably not allowed. He'll watch the replay probably, and then I'll hear from him maybe tomorrow. You can mod for Glenn, says the Waits Experience. I'll consider it. I might have to start taking applications. It'll have to be names I see oftentimes in the chat. But let's get back on track, okay? I've derailed enough here. So where I left off was with the oil futures, of course, and Trump. I'm going to reread Trump's statement real quick. He said, I won't do the impression. It's straining my voice too much. But he said, based on conversations with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, Pakistan, and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran, and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to complete, immediate, and safe opening, those are all in caps by him, of course, on Truth Social, of the Strait of Hormuz, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. And he says the reason for doing so is because we already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. So that's the first part I want to discuss right here. This is what I want to cover. I want to say this. Shehbaz Sharif, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, all of a sudden this guy weighs in, and now Trump's interested in peace. So I want to preface what I'm about to go over here and ask yourself, why is it that the Pakistani Prime Minister, not a country that we're notorious for having a super duper great relationship with, by the way, certainly not a country that has any sort of leverage over America or any sort of ridiculous, important, vital relationship with us. But Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is, I guess, the credited reason by Trump himself for the 2-day peace extension ceasefire deal here. Then he says, of course, that we received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. And I told you at the beginning of the stream, Trump's now outraged that CNN has implied that Trump has given in and agreed to those 10 points. He's saying it's fake news and that he didn't agree to them. So that's important to note right off the bat here. But what I want to do is cover these peace plan deals from both sides. Now, the 15-point peace plan that America, the United States, proposed to Iran earlier in March to get everything ended. I can't find all 15 points listed anywhere. Apparently, this is somewhat private information that they haven't fully publicized. But some of the major points were leaked. And I have this pulled up. This was from March 24th. It says the U.S. developed a 15-point plan to end the Iran war and claims that Iran has agreed to many of the key points per Axios. Details include a proposal that includes many of the same demands that the U.S. made during the last round of nuclear talks in Geneva. The U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff has told Trump that Iran has agreed on giving up their stockpile of highly enriched uranium. That's an interesting one. I'll cover that in a second here. Number 3, the document calls for zero uranium enrichment in Iran. That's also interesting. And then 4, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is concerned Trump might strike a deal that falls well short of Israel's objectives. Another interesting point to cover here, because Israel is a wild card here. And if you can't see that already, I can't even help you, but I'll explain why. Now, Iran's response to this 15-point deal that the U.S. sent, which again, we just don't have a lot of access to all 15 points, can't find it. Maybe it's out there and I missed it, and consider me unprepared as a streamer then. But I couldn't find it. I searched everywhere. The 10-point deal, this is how Iran responded. And they did this, by the way. They responded with this 10-point deal back in March initially. Their 10-point deal is as follows. Guarantee that Iran will not be attacked again. Permanent end to the war, not just a ceasefire. An end to Israeli strikes in Lebanon. Lifting of all U.S. sanctions on Iran, dating all the way back to the Bush era, by the way. An end to all regional fighting against Iranian allies. Iran would reopen the Strait of Hormuz. This is point number 6 from Iran themselves. 7, Iran would impose a $2 million fee per ship transiting the Strait of Hormuz. 8, Iran would split these fees with Oman. 9, Iran would establish rules for safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. And 10, Iran would use Hormuz fees for reconstruction instead of reparations. Iran had originally demanded reparations, actually, in their original points, too. So this is the updated 10-point peace plan. Now they want to use the fees that they'll collect in tolls to pass the Strait of Hormuz for reconstruction rather than reparations. The Iranian media is reporting that Trump agreed to this, and CNN reported that Trump agreed to this. Trump himself came out and denied it. And I want to break down some of these points. First of all, the first 2 points, guarantee that Iran will not be attacked again, and 2, a permanent end to the war, not just a ceasefire. This is why this makes sense, honestly, is because basing it off of the history of Israel and the United States, as mentioned in my chat by some people here, where ceasefire deals don't tend to be honored, especially by Israel, but in some cases even with Trump, who has claimed to embrace them and then decided to preemptively strike. So Iran knows this, and Iran knows that if this is only going to be some 30-day ceasefire, it actually benefits us way more than it benefits them. And I've discussed a lot of the reasons on this channel why Iran has some serious leverage here in this Middle East war now that we're involved with them, because of the Strait of Hormuz predominantly, and also because of Iran's willingness to go scorched earth and strike all of their neighbors and strike their critical resources like desalination plants and liquid natural gas fields, oil fields, etc. And so Trump has had to walk on eggshells a little bit more than I think he intended to because of that. And as a result, Iran has some serious leverage in this war that, for instance, Venezuela didn't have. Now, where we gain leverage is if we're able to bluff them as a country into being convinced that this is now a 30-day ceasefire so we can work towards peace genuinely. If the true intent of America and Israel, though, is to not work towards peace and to just buy an extra 30 days, that gives us more time to get more military units on the ground, possibly in Iran, for a ground war invasion, because more Marines have been sent to Iran and have yet to arrive, actually. We're talking tens of thousands of troops at this point, getting set to arrive soon. A third additional aircraft carrier, right? B-2 bombers took off earlier today. On top of that, we can restock a lot of our munitions that have been lost now as a result of using them on Iran. One of the major problems we actually faced, and one of the major reasons, this actually highlights one of the major reasons I'm not for foreign aid whatsoever, or for helping countries that aren't really our allies and haven't done anything for us, is the fact that our munitions stockpiles were way lower than what we wanted them to be heading into this excursion. Though I don't agree whatsoever with getting involved with Iran to the capacity that we have, well, a problem was highlighted was we gave a lot of our munitions to the Ukraine under Biden in order to help them repel Russia and keep them at bay. So because of that, because of giving Ukraine a lot of money, of course, and in addition a lot of munitions, the Pentagon flat out admitted that, and Trump did himself, I think, that our small armaments were where we wanted them to be. Our mid-tier armaments were where we wanted them to be, but some of our more devastating missiles and bombs were way lower than what we wanted them to be heading into this war because of the Ukraine. No way around it. And so knowing this, Iran understands that this war must end. This cannot be a ceasefire deal where we just pretend like we're working towards peace, as Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner have been very good at doing thus far, by the way. Certainly Israel, too, has been good at this. Only for those 30 days, or in this case, 2 weeks only for these 2 weeks to expire. If that happens and we're back at war, we have benefited more from that than Iran has. So they understand that, and that's why the first two most prominent points are no more attacks on Iran and a permanent end to the war, not just a ceasefire. They understand. They see the patterns. Now, the third demand here from Iran: Israel must end strikes in Lebanon. This was something we saw Israel do, and this is not a surprise if you understand how Israel operates as a country. So the second we strike Tehran and Iran on February 28th, within 48 hours, Israel already points us in the direction of Turkey and says, guess what? When you're done there, we have a feeling Turkey is going to be a major problem for us. On top of that, within a week after that, not even, I think, South Lebanon winds up being struck by Israel and invaded by IDF soldiers. They're now planning to demo entire blocks, entire cities, essentially, in South Lebanon. And they, of course, claim, I believe, what is it? Is it Hezbollah that's in South Lebanon? That's how they justify the strikes. Lebanon, of course, is a very, very Christian country, ironically enough. But this is what Israel does, because Israel has the greater Israel vision in mind. And I've highlighted this problem on this channel. I've said it from the start. The divergence of goals here will be made apparent at multiple points during this war. We've already seen it. Israel doesn't actually care about Persian liberation, and they don't actually care that much about nuclear power and nuclear warheads in Iran. They do care about that one, but that was our excuse to get involved as the United States, because that's what we were fed. They want us to be doomers about nukes and say, well, Iran can't have a nuke because they hate us. That's the excuse they want us to believe. For Israel, it's much different. The nukes are important because it would allow Iran to be just as powerful or more powerful in Israel. So they are important, but it doesn't end with the nukes. The regime change doesn't matter to us at all, though we were told that was one of the reasons. The regime change is more important for Israel. They need a softened, very weak regime that they can stampede over continuously as they now plan to dominate the region. And Iran is the last countermeasure in the Middle East to Israel. It's a large enough country with a massive population, three times the size of a lot of the other Middle Eastern countries we've been involved with, like Iraq, Afghanistan, etc. It's huge. 92 million people live in there, and a military that is 1.1 million strong, with plenty of ballistic missiles, and now we know hundreds, it seems, thousands perhaps, of drones, as Iran decided to bury its factories under mountains and produce drones and ballistic missiles. These are counterstrike measures. These are defensive counterstrike measures that Iran has stockpiled in preparation for what we've seen over the past month now, more than a month. And as a result, it's a pretty good deterrent when it comes to Israel. Yes, Israel has nuclear power. They have nuclear warheads that they weren't ever supposed to have, by the way. Not many people know that. JFK was completely against Israel developing nuclear warheads, spoke out very critically against that, and then, of course, went for a convertible ride. And then his predecessor decided, we'll just drop the whole AIPAC should be a foreign lobby thing. We'll just drop the whole Israel shouldn't develop nuclear warheads thing. I wonder why he dropped it, right? Nevertheless, Israel does have nuclear warheads, but that is like the last taboo across the world right now, using nuclear warheads to solve problems. That's like the last taboo that hasn't been shattered when it comes to wartime, when it comes to diplomacy, if you can even call it diplomacy anymore. So Israel has their Samson option. They have their nuclear warheads, but they can't just use them willy-nilly. And as a result of that, Iran's ballistic missiles and drones are more than enough to keep Israel at bay, which is unacceptable for Israel, because that means Iran can check, from a power standpoint, they can keep Israel in check from expanding into Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, Turkey, you name it. From the Nile to the Euphrates is what they believe is their manifest destiny, Israel does, to conquer and to obtain. They believe that is their right to all of that land. And Iran's the only country in the way of Israel achieving that truly. So their goals are different. And that's why when we struck Iran, we saw Israel immediately tell us Turkey's a problem, get ready to deal with that. We're going into South Lebanon. And they justified it with a Iran proxy group that is based out of Lebanon. That's how they justify it. And then they say, well, these people hide weapons and armaments and soldiers inside of civilian houses, so we now must destroy those houses. So they level entire city blocks and turn them into parking lots, and then they have IDF soldiers comb through it to ensure nobody survives. This is how they operate. And that's why Iran has it as number 3, Israel must end their strikes in Lebanon. On top of that, number 4, lifting all U.S. sanctions on Iran. Stop everything. Actually, Eddie sent a super chat too. Let me just acknowledge that. I did see that out of the corner of my eye. Eddie, 99-cent super chat tariff. I appreciate you a lot, Eddie. Thank you, man. Even though, Eddie, I had to unhide a comment from you on my channel where you said I was hanging out in a gay bar. Where do you get this idea, Eddie? I am not like a lot of prominent conservative speakers, mainly because I'm not prominent, but I am in fact 100% straight and always will be. I had to unhide that under one of my videos, Eddie. I don't know what you're up to, but you said I was late or something, and that I don't know. So, but I appreciate your super chat tariffs and support nonetheless, Eddie. Seriously, thank you. And the Waits experience with a $1 super chat tariff as well. You guys are really balancing the chat deficit tonight, and I appreciate it a lot. Seriously, thank you guys. I will catch up with the rest of your guys' chats too. I just want to finish reading these 10 points because these are important to understand why they're being made and what this determines the future will be when it comes to U.S. involvement in the Middle East, Iran's position geopolitically going forward, and whether or not Trump will even agree to all of it. So I'm going to finish it, and then I'll read your guys' chats. I will catch up. Keep chatting away. It helps the stream perform well in the algorithm. Be sure to subscribe to American Advocates if you haven't already, and make sure post notifications are turned on. And if you'd be so kind and you're enjoying the content, double tap your phone screen or hit that thumbs up like button because it helps the stream perform very well. Stop everything again. A second 99-cent super chat tariff from Eddie. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. I never said you was gay, my guy. Yes, you did. I had to unhide your comment. I saw it. I'm going to screenshot it. I'm going to screenshot it for my next stream. All right. So back on point here. Back on point. The lifting of all U.S. sanctions on Iran. This dates back. Their demands, by the way, are dating back to sanctions that were imposed on them from what I saw, George Bush in the early 2000s. They want all sanctions lifted. Now, one of the things was Trump actually eased a lot of their sanctions after they closed the Strait of Hormuz in order to try to prevent oil from spiking up too high. So that already started happening, and that was already touted, of course, as a Trump loss, as it revealed the leverage that Iran has. Because beyond Iran's leverage stemming from their ability to close down the Strait of Hormuz, to use their proxies like Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis particularly were likely about to get involved and shut down the Bab al-Mandab Strait, which is responsible for another 12% of global oil supply, and the Red Sea by default as well with the Houthis. Despite that, despite their proxies, despite their ability to go scorched earth and not care about waging war with their passive neighbors, which is a tactic we had no answer for, truthfully, and their willingness to go scorched earth and wipe out all of the Middle East's resources, deep source depots, lifelines when it comes to desalinization, Iran also has more leverage because they control a lot of the oil. And so Trump already had the lift, despite being in an excursion, he calls it, with Iran. He lifted some of the sanctions on them in the name of oil. And it did expose the fact that Iran had more leverage on us than we probably wanted to admit. But now they want all U.S. sanctions lifted as part of their 10-day point plan, and it dates back to the Bush administration from the 2000s. An end to all regional fighting against Iranian allies. I just named all three of those, of course. That was point 5. Point 6 was them agreeing that they would reopen the Strait of Hormuz. But point 7 is that they would impose a $2 million fee per ship transiting Hormuz. And that they, in fairness, would split these fees with Oman. And then also that they would establish rules for safe passage through Hormuz. And that was literally point 7, 8, 9, and then 10, of course, is Iran would use Hormuz fees for reconstruction instead of reparations. Now, reports are coming in already, by the way, that, let me cover that. Reconstruction, yep, covered that one. Reports were coming in during the war that Iran had already imposed these tolls, these $2 million tolls, on at least a couple of oil tankers, which were able to pass through the Strait of Hormuz protected and unharmed, undamaged. So they had already been experimenting with this and already had tested it and pulled it off. This happened a couple of weeks ago. Now, the other day, somewhere around 35 to 39 additional oil tankers passed through, and there's no confirmed reports on whether or not all or some or at least a few of them wound up paying that $2 million toll in order for safe passage. But nevertheless, close to 40 oil tankers passed through it the other day. None of them, of course, were U.S. or Israeli associated ones. But they have been letting some through, and the speculation is that at least many of them are being tolled. And this is something that Iran identified as a potential, again, not just leverage point, but way to come out victorious from this excursion in the Middle East if they can hold on to this sovereign control of the strait now and treat it like a canal, which is what they're asking to do. For people who don't know, what Iran is asking for is in direct international law, violation of international law and maritime law, because the Strait of Hormuz is not like considered private property or sovereign to any one country like a canal would be. Iran is now saying, no, well, we want to treat it like a canal, and we're going to, and you can't stop us. They've been doing it all month long, shutting it down, choking it out, charging ships toll. Now they just want to keep it that way. And why wouldn't they? They're making money. So objectively, you can't even fault them for that. But what we're seeing is, I had it pulled up here. Let me see if I can find it again. Yeah, what we're seeing is they originally demanded reparations in their 10-point peace plan deal, and now they're proposing to almost sweeten the deal in a way, I guess. Not that we would have ever agreed to reparations anyway or taking it seriously. But instead of reparations, they're saying, well, allow us the control of the Strait of Hormuz, and we'll use that money to rebuild our cities that you've bombed, and then it doesn't need to come in the form of reparations. I have a lot of skepticism when it comes to Trump agreeing to this. It would certainly make us look terrible to have to agree to that. And Trump's going to know that. Trump, like I've discussed earlier on the stream, is very about image, perception. I've mentioned this problem before on this channel. I said this is a big problem getting involved like this because it doesn't truthfully take much to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. All it takes is for them to honestly make the threat of blowing up oil tankers. And whether or not they're even prepared fully to do that, most oil tankers will take that seriously and everything will come to a grinding halt. I said that about the Houthis as well because people were underestimating and underplaying Houthi involvement in this war. And they said, the Houthis are trash. They're a ragtag team of mercenaries, basically, that act as a proxy meat shield for Iran. We took care of them and mopped the floor with them last time. We bombed them into submission. And I said, yeah, but you don't understand. They can shut down the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandab Strait simply by threatening to. Most oil tankers will take that with a degree of credibility behind it and say, we can't risk it. That's all it takes. And this is the problem and why these countries have this leverage over us. They have home field advantage and they have ruthless aggression on their side. Scorched earth policy. Whichever enemy is willing to go the furthest oftentimes wins. And I said this was the problem, and it could ultimately wind up coming back to damage American reputation and military credibility. Because it's been assumed for the longest time that should anything happen in the Middle East, especially if we had learned from the 70s, which is essentially kind of repeating itself in some way, we would be able to force open the Strait of Hormuz. This was assumed by our allies in most countries. But now they're negotiating over this, and they're threatening to essentially kind of keep control of it now, which is the opposite of what was assumed if America got involved. It was assumed we would go in and say, no, you're not, reopen it now, and there would be compliance under military threat. It hasn't happened. So our reputation's on the line, our military's credibility's on the line, and so Trump has to seriously consider this one. And that's important for people to understand because this has serious future geopolitical implications when it comes to the rest of the world's perception of our military and our country and our power. So that's what's basically on the table here with the 10-point peace plan, and a lot of the issues I see have to do with the Strait of Hormuz, despite the fact, by the way, that Trump said that he doesn't care, right? And this is again where the logic is just so inconsistent, and I've pointed this out several times. You have the MAGA cheerleader channels that say, well, this was a test of our NATO allies. They failed the test, So therefore, they deserve to have the Strait of Hormuz closed down for good now. And it's not our problem anyway. Trump's playing 5D chess and you're just playing checkers. Of course, I just explained why that's not realistic whatsoever and why this is actually a problem for us. But Trump tried to pretend he's gone back and forth with the bluffing. Well, they got to reopen the strait. Actually, you know what? It's not our problem. It can stay closed forever. It's not our problem. Only 5% of our oil passes through it anyway. And we've got the drill, baby, drill. We got our own oil. We have, some say, more oil than the Middle East, actually. So not our problem. If NATO doesn't want to send their soldiers and their ships to reopen it, then it's not our problem. They should have got involved sooner and they wouldn't. There's so many reasons why that's a poor take. And I pointed it out on prior streams and I called it a bluff. And it is. Because the real Trump and the real opinion that we saw was on Easter Sunday. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards. Direct quote from Trump. When he was having a childlike, bratty, kind of God tier level meltdown on Easter. That's where you see the real truth being displayed because he understands how important the Strait of Hormuz is for our allies and for us to some degree still, regardless. Now, Trump has, like I said, responded. This was breaking news as of just 2 hours ago. Trump responded to reports that he had accepted Iran's alleged 10-point peace plan deal, and he called it fake news. He says that the alleged statement put out by CNN World News is a fraud. This is what he had to say. He said the alleged statement put out by CNN World News is a fraud, as CNN well knows. The false statement was linked to a fake news site from Nigeria, and of course immediately picked up by CNN and blared out as a legitimate headline. The official statement by Iran was just released and posted on Truth below. Authorities are looking to determine whether or not a crime was committed on the issuance of the fake CNN World statement, or was a sick rogue player. CNN is being ordered to immediately withdraw this statement with full apologies for their, as usual, terrible reporting. Results of the investigation will be announced in the near future. So that's what he had to say about this. But like I pointed out, here's the thing. There's no way around this. This was Trump's official statement today at 6:32 p.m. on Truth Social. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. So that's what he actually said. Okay? Granted, he did not say he's accepting it, but that they're using it and believe it that it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. So it means that they're seriously considering a lot of it. That's the inference there that I'm taking. I think that's the correct stance. So CNN reported he capitulated and accepted all of it. That doesn't appear to be true. Nor did I ever believe that was the case. Now, OSINT Defender reports, under the 2-week ceasefire plan agreed to tonight by both Iran and the United States, both Iran and Oman are permitted to charge fees on commercial vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz, according to the Associated Press, with officials stating that the money received by Iran will be used to rebuild the country following the recent strike campaign by Israel and the United States. So this is being more widely reported. And truthfully, what would go into reopening the Strait of Hormuz, if you actually understand this, you know that despite us having a great Air Force and Navy, we actually cannot, if Iran wills it, we can't use or rely on just our Air Force or Navy alone to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. And this is because Iran's strategy of producing in mass ballistic missiles, which are pretty cheap to produce from a military cost standpoint, and drones. Some of these drones are insultingly cheap that are being used against our military equipment. $600 on the lowest end. High end, $50,000. But from a military cost standpoint, that is cheap. And Iran, they've gone all in on this. And so what we see is these drones will fly out. They will send out one $50,000 drone and blow up tons. It's an oil tanker that they blow up. So $50,000 drone, oil tanker, we're talking millions and millions of dollars lost, right? And at one point, Trump was actually trying to insure these oil tankers in order to try to convince them to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. We promised to insure them, provide literal insurance. That was actually struck down, apparently, and Trump does not have permission to do that. But that's all it takes, and that's the problem. And that's why, once again, the real only way and why I predicted this would be imminent on this channel, and it looks like there's a 50-50 chance that I'm wrong, praise the Lord, but I'm still not convinced that I'm wrong, about boots on the ground being imminent, because we would need to be able to dominate and control the entire coastline of the Strait of Hormuz in order to be able to shoot down drones or ballistic missiles that Iran would use to continue choking the Strait of Hormuz. And that would be political poison for President Donald Trump, whose ultimate restraint that he's facing this year is the midterm elections and disappointing his own voter base. Boots on the ground for a lot of people is the final straw. And so aside from that, if Iran wants to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed, they can, unless we just go full-in ground war invasion to stop it. And it's not like Israel will do it. The news reports already confirmed that if we do a ground war invasion in Iran, Israel will be sending precisely 0 IDF soldiers to join us. The Kurds have already refused our request to wage war for us, and that's pretty much the end of that. And so what choice is Trump left with now is the question. And that's why there's a very realistic outcome here where, despite the fact that pre-February 28th, the Strait of Hormuz was completely open for all oil tankers to pass through, now it is closed, and now it will reopen with Iran controlling it in coinciding with Oman and charging a toll now going forward for the foreseeable future, establishing sovereignty over the strait. That is a realistic outcome. And if that happens, it is an obvious loss for the Trump administration and truthfully for America. And it does hurt our credibility and our reputation. So how Trump will work his way out of this one, he's the art of the deal master. Hopefully he's got something planned when it comes to negotiations to avoid this, because that is the outcome that, though the strait would be reopened, it would be still a disastrous outcome for us. Certainly not as bad as a full-out ground war invasion. That would be the ultimate disaster, or a nuke, which again, people were speculating a nuke would happen today. I didn't think it would, and I'm right about that. But it's all a disaster unless the strait is reopened and returned back to its original state pre-February 28th, where it was just wide open for all. And that doesn't look likely to happen. As a result of this, by the way, actually, before I get into this, I'm going to cover the Israel element next. But before I get into this, I've let chat get out of control for a little too long now. I'll take a look at your guys' chats. I obviously paused to read the super chats and whatnot, but let me see what was being said in between all of that. You guys are fighting about tariffs and super chats? What's going on in here? Ed, be a man and donate $100 right now, says Drew Donato. Drew, you're new here, but I like you already. I like the way you think. Everyone truthfully should be donating $100 super chat tariffs to me. Everyone. For the knowledge I drop, the analysis I provide, it's truly the least you all could do. Like, imagine if all 33 viewers right now, it was at 40, now that I'm reading chats, some people dropped off. Imagine we get the number up to 40 and then all of a sudden it's boom, $100 from all 40 viewers. I am fucking rich. I can pay a toll for the Strait of Hormuz then. I will go live. If all 40 viewers drop the $100 super chat, I will go live in 48 hours from the Strait of Hormuz. Ed doesn't have $100. Ed is very rich. He just deploys the strategy of donating oftentimes several $1 or 99-cent super chats throughout the live stream to keep the tariff momentum going. He understands that it's momentum based. That's why I like Ed's strategy on that. Yesterday, I donated $4.99 more than you guys, says Eddie. That's actually true. And then he says, bunch of names, I've never seen you give nothing. That's actually true as well. Bunch of names says I mail it. That is fake news. Bunch of names, the username has never given me anything. Bunch of names, the person has given me a lot. So bunch of names is tariff exempt. I can promise you that. Yeah, Ed, and my dick is bigger than yours. Come on, guys. Is there anything worth reading in the chat here, or is it all goy slop? See, I can't be mad. You guys have balanced the chat deficit with these tariffs, so I'm not going to be mad about it. But goodness. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. Chance, I won't try to read Vicinio. Chance says it's a religious war eschatologically. All three parties are in on it to force conditions to bring their respective messiahs. Well, I don't completely agree with that though, because I am a Protestant Christian, but I am not an evangelical. What is their stance again? Dispensationalist, post-millennialist, nut job, basically. I don't believe that it's my job as a Christian to try to speed up the end times. I don't believe that the third temple should be rebuilt. I don't believe the Jews are God's chosen people, at least not inherently so anymore. The covenant has changed. Certainly, if Jews are willing to recognize Christ as the Messiah and the Savior, then they are God's chosen people alongside the Gentiles who were grafted onto the tree, such as myself. But inherently, they're not the chosen people. I think it's this weird Israel worship nowadays you see from evangelicals. And so you're right, but you're not completely right, because truthfully, I view the evangelical nut jobs as a small sect that unfortunately, like everything else we don't want overrepresented in this country, unfortunately they're overrepresented because Trump appointed his religious peace whatever cabinet, and it's all evangelical nut jobs that are pushing for this. Pete Hegseth himself is of that type, and it's foolish. But for the rest of us, we actually have a reasonable and correct perspective on Israel, which is a country that was founded in 1948, by the way, a nation that we created for them. So, like most Christians, I would hope, I actually am convinced of, actually at least inherently understand the truth if you take the time to explain it to them. Most of them are not gung-ho about this. Increasingly not with the young people. That much is for sure. But you're not wrong, because it's Judaism, Islam, and evangelical Christianity at play here. So I do have to agree with you overall. But I want you to know there are good Protestants out there. They just have to be Presbyterian like I am, basically. Or you have to be Orthodox or Catholic, true Roman Catholic, in order to see this for what it is. 2009 Lifeguard said, oh, more, you guys are ridiculous. You guys can fight about donating. Spend less energy on talking about sending money and more energy on just sending money. Give me money. Better to be gay than stupid, says Chance. I don't know if I agree. I don't know if I agree with that. Eddie says, Drew, I got my credit card bill. I sent the host $45. Dang, Eddie. I appreciate you, man. Guys, in all seriousness, if you're ever going to send a tariff in this chat, the super chat tariff, only send what you can afford. I'm assuming Eddie's a super rich guy, so I'm sure $45 is nothing to him. But sulfur, vulcanized tires, fuck oil. We need tires, says Chance. Yeah, there's a lot that goes on in that region. We have fertilizer that we have to worry about too. That's going to catch up to us later on this season after the farmers have had to pay more for their fertilizer for their crops. That's going to be a big problem. Drew Donato says, will that toll stay even after the 10-point proposal? That's the question. And I'm assuming you sent that chat on or before I was making my point and explaining it. But that's the question. And we really can't be sure. We're going to have to wait and see over the course of these next 2 weeks. I think there's a likely outcome where it stays. Trump will have to really, really negotiate with them in order to try to make sure that doesn't stay. And he should negotiate with them over that, because we shouldn't allow that to stay. That would, like I've stated several times now live tonight, that would make us look bad if Iran takes complete control of the strait, or sharing it with Oman, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, anything less than returning the Strait of Hormuz back to its pre-February 28th strike on Tehran condition is a loss for America. And one of the major criticisms I had going into this war, and one of the major problems I pointed out early on, the standard for victory for Iran is so much lower than our standard of victory, which is why overall this war was just not worth it. We don't even know if it's ending yet. We just know that this two-week ceasefire deal is now in effect. But even if it ends, it's like there's no justifiable way to explain how this war was worth it. This was all just a massive risk. And the best possible scenario is we break even. They asked for 50% of their oil profits, of their own oil profits, instead of 17%. That's when the UK, US cooed them originally. Interesting. Long live Iran, says Why So Serious Son. Red team, blue team, you can't beat guerrillas, says Chance. There is a problem with the guerrilla warfare for sure. I pointed that out too. It's just whichever side is willing to go the furthest and be the most extreme does oftentimes win. Eddie says, if I hurt your feelings, I'm sorry. You didn't hurt my feelings, not at all. The ones that use it must fight for it. Stupid guy says Paradise Lost, Divine Comedy. The ones that use it must fight for it, stupid guy. Okay, so explain this logic to me real quick. Let's just run this by real fast. The Strait of Hormuz is open for all February 27th and before, right? Just completely open. No toll, no issues, no ships at jeopardy of being struck by Iran. We then strike Tehran because Israel essentially orders us to. Everything goes to shit. They close the Strait of Hormuz. They refuse to reopen it. They say no matter what we do, they will keep controlling it now. And now they're saying, well, $2 million toll to pass through. We now look at our allies after we're the reason that it's shut down, and we say, looks like your problem now. We're out of here. As much as I hate NATO, I can't get behind that. It makes no diplomatic sense. And once again, makes us look like shit. If you can't understand that, then you're just a chud. You are meant to be a headline reading, goy slop eating son of a gun, and you should just shut up and go to your 9-to-5 job and never think critically about anything ever again. Drew says Paradise is simple-minded. Yes, exactly. And then he puts the yawn emoji. No doubt when I was spitting facts that he couldn't handle. I'd be surprised if he's even still here in chat. They raise good people and grow food, says Chance. Who does? He is like a box of rocks. Because you're a big traitor. I'm a traitor, or Drew is. Your paradise is lost. You're all divine comedy. Whatever, dude. What even? Chance says Mad Dog sank the entire fleet in 3 days in the war games before drones. Yeah, well, drones are like the ultimate spit in the face to our the last 100 years of our warfare. It seems like why build tanks and aircraft carriers if one $50,000 drone can blow them up? So this, if anything, has exposed how much war is changing. Yeah, he is a smooth brain, Drew. Careful, man. His username includes 2 books. He might be a Reddit mod. Reddit mods have no power here. He's obviously from Iran. Americans in a decent position would never accept one world government. Hopefully not. Yeah, good point, bunch of names. That's true, though. COVID really did make you think otherwise. I agree with that, sadly, yeah. Hey, Bold as a Lion, welcome, man. What's the difference of conspiracy theory and the truth? 6 months. Yep, it's so true. Lifeguard says, I would donate $100, but it would cost Ed's chatting privileges. Oh, I don't know if we can do that. And then Ed donates 99 cents immediately after that. I volunteer my time, says Chance. I believe it's not religious. And Chance, we appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Jimbo said, I believe it's not religious, but it's mostly about power and resources. I don't agree, Jimbo. I'll tell you why. It has everything to do with Israel and their interests. And Israel practices Judaism, and they base a lot of what they believe is their right in that region off of their religion. They will tell you that this land has been promised to them 3,000 years ago. And so it is actually a holy war. And though I think it's fair, who said that it was a holy war? Was it Chance, actually? That evangelical Christians be included into this trio holy war now. I think predominantly America doesn't need to be involved, but it is Judaism versus Islam. And it is the 2 ancient Abrahamic brothers of the Bible still warring with each other thousands of years later. So it is a holy war, and it's a holy war that America doesn't need to be involved with and shouldn't be involved in. But Israel has bought our loyalty is the problem. MMMM says, sorry, brother, late to the party. Hey, welcome, man. I recognize you. You haven't been here in a while, but I've seen you commenting under my lives. You don't tend to... It seems like you watch them after the fact sometimes, and I appreciate that too. So thank you, man. He says, late to the party, but keep up the good work, my man. You rock. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Every time you comment under the live stream when it saves as a video on my channel, you're always saying nice things like that. Appreciate that. As much as I actually live for all the bad comments, and I think they're hilarious, I love the good comments too, so thank you. Steve OD3198 says, why not pay for some of the negotiations, and in return, they do not charge the toll and reopen the strait as part of the 10 or 15-point plan? Oh, why not pay for some of the reparations? Because either way, Steve, if we were truly the superpower and world's hegemony and global empire that we're made out to be, then none of this would be occurring. There would be no negotiations. Iran would, in a perfect world right now, from an American standpoint, especially as from Trump's standpoint, we would be so powerful that none of this would have unfolded this way. They would never be able to choke out the Strait of Hormuz, and we would be able to demand and insist that it opens immediately, and they would be forced to capitulate. So agreeing to pay any reparations at all is a submissive gesture. And it's not one you would expect from the world's hegemony being us, the global empire being us, or the world's hyperpower being what used to be us to have to do. It's a sign of weakness. And allowing them to maintain sovereignty over the region and charge tolls is also a sign of weakness. And this is a sign of weakness that sends flags up with all of our regional allies now. NATO allies, regional allies, you name it. Trump just went on a tour in the Middle East last year and strengthened ties with the United Arab Emirates, Dubai, Qatar, etc. He went on that tour. And they were anxious and eager and elated to see Trump in the Middle East. They threw him parades with dancing Arabs everywhere. They rolled out a red carpet. They flew him in on a gold-plated plane. They had a feast with him, right? And the reason why is because they had what could be, sadly, an outdated image of what America is, the world's hyperpower, the country that can solve all problems with our military and our economy. So they were eager to partner with us. What happens not even a year later? We go to war in Iran at Israel's behest, and those same allies Trump tours with in the Middle East and strengthens ties with now are on the receiving end of Iranian aggression, which is bad for business in a city like Dubai, which is marketed as a Middle Eastern first world city full of luxury and paradise, truly. So it hurts them. And then if we leave the strait closed, which is truly the artery of the Middle East, after it was closed because of us, if it stays closed or remains under Iranian sovereignty and they charge tolls, that reveals to them that America isn't necessarily the country, the hyperpower, etc., that they perceived us to be. And that's a problem because that means in the future they start viewing us differently. They start reconsidering diplomacy with us, deals with us, investments with us. Part of the reason Trump did that tour was because it netted something like over $2 trillion in rich oil Saudi money investments into our economy, under the notion that being partnered with us is unbeatable, makes them unbeatable, guaranteed protection, guaranteed profits, guaranteed good relations. That's been sort of proven wrong already, and if we pull out of that region with the Strait of Hormuz under Iranian control, that kind of cements the idea that we're not all that we're chalked up to be. And that means that in the future they consider alliances and allegiances with other countries, perhaps China, perhaps Russia. NATO's doing the same thing. And I've always advocated that we leave NATO on this channel, but always under our terms, which is why I advocated for that last fall before any of this was happening. We leave on our terms, and that puts NATO in the position where they might beg for us to stay. And then we use that as leverage in negotiations. Now it's different. Now you have Giorgia Meloni, who's one of the better leaders in NATO for Italy, and she hates all of this, and she's speaking out against Trump now. That should be a country that we seek to strengthen our alliance with. But they can't stand it because it's ruining their economies. And NATO will view it the same way. If the Strait of Hormuz isn't reopened by us after we're justifiably the reason why it was shut down, it's the same statement being made to them. And they're already on record as wanting to start slowly strengthening or opening up the possibility of an alliance with China. At the World Economic Forum, Emmanuel Macron of France, he was on record even saying this. Mark Carney of Canada, same thing. Keir Starmer in Britain is allowing China to build some sort of an embassy next to a British building that houses national security secrets in its basement, British national security secrets. So these countries are already in the process of slowly cozying up to China. Then we go and do something like this, and this makes us look bad, and it almost essentially creates this process now of where they're going to consider strengthening their ties with China even more. This is the biggest problem. Chance says you can watch videos of Sabbatian leaders talking to Bibi, telling him to hurry up and bring the Messiah. Yeah, they're very serious about it there. They have the red heifers. Some of the IDF soldiers are wearing the patches on their sleeves of the Third Temple. So they're not all Jews, by the way. Many of the Jews, you should never allow it to turn into Jew hatred. It's the Israeli government and a lot of their government officials. A lot of the Jews are against this war. A lot of American Jews are actually really against this war in the polls that I've seen. A lot of the Jews in Israel are very nationalistic, so they rally behind their country and their leader during war, as you would expect any country's citizens to. But even then, a lot of them are not in major support of Netanyahu, and not all of them believe the same thing. They're very split. There's the Orthodox Jews, the Hasidic Jews, the Rabbinic Jews. There's a lot of different sects of Judaism. So it's a mixed bag with them, but it's not about them as an individual. It's just about their country and how corrupt their leaders are and the agenda of those who always find themselves in power. Echoing, honestly, the same issue we have here in America, apparently. Bunch of Names says, paying reparation admits defeat. Yep, it's political suicide. I agree. You are great, says David01. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Seriously, if you haven't subscribed already, be sure to subscribe to American Advocates right here for more content like this. I go live every night, pretty much. Once in a while, I'll just take a random day off, oftentimes Saturday. And be sure to like the stream, guys, if you haven't already. Double tap your phone screen or hit the thumbs up button. It truly helps the stream perform well in the algorithm. Chance says Iran has been sick and tired of being sick and tired. Look at the UN minutes. It's like watching Ron Paul in the 2008 presidential debates. He's talking about auditing the Fed and gets responses about abortion. Yeah. Ridiculous. Unchained Melody says, wow, you hate America. Sad, bro. What about this screams to you that I hate America? There's no other country I love at all, actually. America is the country, and I want the best for it. That's honestly unbelievable. You want me to spew out propaganda slop? Is that it? Trump's the greatest president of all time, and he really is sticking it to NATO by just telling them that the Strait of Hormuz is their problem. Unfortunately, I'm not a chud idiot, Unchained. Unfortunately, I try to critically think about things and analyze what's happening from a strategical standpoint. Sorry. I have a feeling that there's just about a 30 IQ point gap between you and I, so you're more likely suited on a different channel. You know, the MAGA cheerleaders, the thing with cheerleaders, they cheer even when their team is losing. That's their job, you know? And that's what it is. Another smooth brain, says Drew. Yeah, Bunch of Names says, yeah, man. They just pop in, listen for 2 minutes, and then start talking bullshit. Exactly. It's all people who are driven by emotions, that's all they're capable of doing. It's how they process the world. There's no time for critical thought. Dave Wood says, hey, Unchained, he doesn't hate America. He's telling the truth. Thank you, man. And that's the truth, by the way. Truth my ass. That is the truth. I love America, and I want us to do well. I want us to remain the world's hyperpower. But moments like this are proving that not only are we not that, but it exposes it, which is actually inherently the problem. You know, that's why we shouldn't be getting involved in these kind of wars. Again, Monroe Doctrine. This is the sad reality. Venezuela is where it should have been left off. Venezuela, I supported the entire time on this channel, and I stated why it was important. Venezuela was a true assault on China, if you know the backstory of it, and it made us look powerful as fuck. We went in there, we kidnapped the entire leader of the country, threw him in a New York prison, and captured his wife, and no soldiers lost their lives, and then we took their oil. That's how you project power. That puts the entire world on notice. We could kidnap you, world leader, third world country world leader. We could kidnap you in 36 hours and put you in a prison in our country. The sad reality is we went from that to this abomination because of Israel demanding that we do so. If we would have just left it at Venezuela, maybe even shifted it, by the way, from Venezuela to Cuba, which, by the way, is close to Venezuela. And you know what's happening instead? Though I actually wouldn't have agreed fully with military action on Cuba, and I think economically we can just squeeze them into submission, we should at least have our Navy around Cuba. We should have a huge naval presence in the Bahamas around Cuba. But where's our Navy right now? The Middle fucking East. Because That successful Venezuela operation went over so well, Bibi Netanyahu says it's time, Trump, to move that overseas to serve Israel. And Trump goes, "Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Bibi Netanyahu. Yes, sir. In fact, sir, I apologize to the Navy." He probably didn't say that, but I like to imagine that that's how bad it is. "I apologize, Mr. Bibi Netanyahu, that the Navy was ever here for protecting our Western Hemisphere to begin with. How dare I keep our Navy here in our Western Hemisphere protecting our shoreline when Israel is certainly the most precious country in the world." He didn't say that, but that's what I like to imagine, because truthfully it's true and we all fucking know it. So we pull off that successful Venezuelan operation and then immediately move 50% of our Navy to the Persian Gulf into the Middle East. Terrible. It should have stayed in that region and surrounded Cuba. That's what real military strategy would have looked like. And Trump, I'll take the job, okay? I'll take Pete Hegseth's job. But I'm not going to work for the minimum six-figure rate that all officials are paid. I need millions of dollars a year. Just let them know that now. But anyways, it is sad. It's sad that we went from such a successful, dominant display of dominance in that operation, that Venezuelan operation. If we would have left it there, we are the world's hyperpower still. All world leaders are on notice. But instead we go to Iran. We bomb them. We fail at regime change. And yes, we failed. It's not a regime change, not truthfully. We changed out some of the members of the regime. But the regime is a hydra. And so you cut the head off and two more appear. So it's just different members of the same regime. That's really what we got. Persian Revolution failed. They never rose up. In fact, today they rose up to protect their bridges and to protect their power plants. So they rose up against America. And then on top of that, we can't get their nuclear enriched uranium. It's buried deep in their nuclear facilities that we bombed last summer. And we can't even get them to reopen the Strait of Hormuz without negotiating with them over it. And even then, there's a chance where the best we can do is negotiate for them to keep it open, but now start charging tolls for every oil tanker passing through it. Absolute self-sabotaging disgrace. Chance says, "You're doing a good job. Keep it up, brother. Lots of homework you've done." Absolutely, yes, and I do. I listen and read all day long to the news, and what's important is read the news from every possible source you can find, including the sources over in Israel and Iran, because it's a fog of war going on here. You have to understand this. Everything is a lie. Trump is lying to us. I don't even fault him for that, by the way. In times of war, I can't even be all that mad at leaders lying to us. It bothers me somewhat, but it's like strategically it's kind of smart, especially with social media nowadays. So Trump's lying to us. Iran is lying to their people and to us. Trump's lying to the Iran people and to us. Israel's lying to us, the Iran people, their people, etc. And so what you really have to do is read from all sources and try to critically think and analyze to try to get to the truth of what's happening. And in cases like these, the way you combat the fact that truth is truly the first casualty in war, that's really what happens. But war over time exposes the real truth. And that's done so through actions. So less listening to what they say and more listening or observing when it comes to what they do. That's how I've been able to make a lot of accurate predictions. Plus pattern recognition. The China tariff wars of last year, I can't say that enough. Just go back and reread about the China tariff war between Trump and China last year and understand it is all unfolding very similarly right now. The extensions, the fake narrative from Trump that there's peace talks happening. He did this with China last year. They want a deal. They want a deal. They don't want the 140% tariffs. They want a deal. And then China says, "No, we don't." He's lying. And Trump says, "Yes, they do. We're going to extend the break from the tariffs on China." He's doing the same thing right now. So that's what it is. It's a combination of all of that. Now, finally, what I want to discuss here, let me see. We are watching how great of a president he is. Yeah. "You are a chud," says Mike. Thank you. Wow, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. "Are you British?" "I'm not a British advocate, Eddie. No." Jimbo says, "Unchained needs to be chained." He's fine. "This dude voted for Kamala." Yeah, definitely not. I actually did vote for Trump this year, or in 2024. "Economy war, controlled by another country." I mean, you have to be so stupid to ignore all these. Bunch of names. "I doubt Kamala voted for Kamala." Yeah, good point. Good point. Hang on, some of these comments aren't showing. American Advocate, if you could marry Kamala and become the first man, would you do it? Hell yes, to be the first man. Because we all know, by the way, that these liberal women, they may be woke in the streets, but they truly are colonized in the sheets. And that's where it begins. So as a white man, I could marry Kamala. I'd colonize her in the sheets, and then I would be the shadow president. Because by default, women always submit to the patriarchy. So if you ever saw me as her husband, just know exactly what's going on. She may sound liberal out front. It's all just projection at that point. I'd be running things from behind the scenes in the White House. I'd be in my fucking bathrobe all day, in the bed in the White House bedroom, on my laptop, and then I'd be calling Kamala and I'd be like, you can say this, but this is what you're really gonna do, bitch. And that's how it would go. So yes, I would take that position, absolutely. She would be saying a bunch of liberal stuff, but doing a lot of conservative stuff. That would be hilarious. You couldn't do a percentage of Hegseth's job. Neither can he. Your name is Mr. Smarty Pants. I'm just going to leave that there, says Drew Donato. Who said that? Mr. Smarty Pants. That's his name. Well, if he's Mr. Smarty Pants, maybe he should take Pete Hegseth's job then. I'm sure he would do a better job. Trump playing 4D chess. Yeah, okay. Please stop saying that, honestly. This isn't over yet. Have some faith in America. You don't know what's going to happen. We don't. We're going to have to wait it out for the next 2 weeks, Unchained. I'm not going to disagree with you on that one. You're not wrong. We have to wait. We have to see how the negotiations go. Peter Kavinsky, there is no ceasefire. Well, and that's what I want to cover, actually. Both of you guys addressing how it's not over yet, etc. Let's talk about this, because Israel is furious about this deal, right? Briefly lost connection there. If it seems paused, you can just refresh the stream. You will have to live stream from the White House, says Devood. No, I would cover my identity then. So I would have to live stream from somewhere. I put a green screen up, honestly, so that you wouldn't know that I was live streaming from the White House. Because the whole point is you can't know that I'm running the show behind the scenes if I'm married to Kamala. So anyways, Israel is furious about this deal, right? And this is, again, because I covered this on prior episodes here on this channel. Their goals diverge from us, what they truly want. And so peace is not in Israel's best interest when it comes to the Middle East or Iran. They don't actually want that. They want Iran decimated. And Iran is not decimated right now. And for reasons just mentioned, Iran might come out in a better circumstance as a result of this peace deal if they start tolling the Strait of Hormuz. They will now economically start making more money and could theoretically wind up getting stronger over time. So Israel's furious. This report came in. This was from Fox News right here on the ground, reporting right here, addressing how Israel is handling this news.
Well, the Israelis, for what they know so far with the details in this 2-week delay in the war, they're not too happy with the details, but they say it's President Trump's decision to make. The Iranian response was to fire another missile at Israel. It wasn't 5 minutes from the time that Truth Social post went up that our phones lit up with another incoming missile. This missile was intercepted over Jerusalem. The shrapnel came down. We've got no word of any injuries. It should be noted that word had gone out through the IDF that we should anticipate a lot of missile fire tonight, and they have not taken that down yet.
The same problem we see all the time in this Middle East region. They hate each other, and so the ceasefire deal always starts off this way, where they just don't observe it. The next day is just who can get the last shot in. So expect that to happen, like saying, all day and night for the next 24 to 48 hours. Trump will be pissed, no doubt. He'll probably make posts about it on social media, yelling at Israel and Iran, telling them to stop immediately. So that doesn't surprise me. It also doesn't surprise me, like you said, that Israel's not thrilled about it. Today, actually, I saw on one of their mainstream news channels live that they had a timer countdown on their news desk. It was 8 hours and counting down, 7 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. It just kept counting down. This was going to be like their Super Bowl moment. They were treating this like a sporting event. I'm surprised they didn't have popcorn, because their hope was total annihilation like Trump promised. So the Israeli reporters were literally counting it down. And now, all of a sudden, that was just disrupted immediately with less than 2 hours to go, with Trump saying, never mind, ceasefire deal. So Israel is furious because complete annihilation and decimation of Iran would have truly served their purpose completely when it comes to beginning the process of taking over the greater Israel region. Iran's the only country that stands in their way of that goal, truthfully. So they're furious, and as a result of that, you have to understand something. Israel is the wild card here. Iran is too, but Israel is a wild card here. Most conservatives, especially boomer cucked neocons, can only confirm to you that Iran can't be trusted. They're only half right. Iran can't be trusted, neither can Israel. And that's what most people can't see. Israel loves violating ceasefire deals, especially when it doesn't serve their interest to have a ceasefire deal in place, which this is an example of that. Mark Levin, actually, a Jew, the new face of MAGA, if you ask me. And I'm just basing that off of the fact that Trump continually tells us to watch his Saturday show on Fox, I think is where it's at. But Mark Levin already called for the termination of the temporary U.S.-Iran ceasefire deal just an hour after it was announced. He says, the 2-week ceasefire deal is being violated right now by the Iranian Nazi regime. Missiles are being fired into Israel and perhaps other countries in the region. Are they able to defend themselves? We have the right man as president, and I bet he's furious about this. I don't personally know. But this will be the question throughout. That is, do we expect the Iranian regime to honor a deal? How will we monitor it, and how will we enforce it? These will all be very difficult issues to resolve. And he's not completely wrong, but the same can be said about Israel too. And this is just the problem with this. So 2 weeks of a ceasefire deal is a lot to ask for when it comes to also insisting that Israel actually falls in line with us, which is something that Israel almost never wants to do, despite them being at our mercy, technically. I wanted to bring this up, too, because not only is Israel the wild card, and Iran for that matter, not only are they still launching rockets at each other right now, as I'm seeing on the news on X trending, they're launching rockets at each other, right? So some ceasefire deal. Again, this always happens at first. I have a feeling within 24 to 48 hours, there will be some peace and quiet for a little while at least. But I wanted to bring this up because this also happened today, and I reported on it, and I didn't see too many people covering this. But Karg Island was struck militarily again today. We bombed Karg Island several times, according to reports that I saw. And that should also tell you something I've talked about on this channel. Understand something. The ceasefire deal is technically in effect now, even if Iran and Israel are slowly winding up towards that point and trying to get their last shots off on each other before being forced to accept it. But understand something. It doesn't change the fact that 2,500 more Marines are expected to arrive in Iran any day now. 2,200 Marines are already there. The 82nd Airborne Infantry is already there. 10,000 more soldiers have left and departed there. Arkansas sent some of their soldiers to the Middle East just yesterday. A third aircraft carrier is on its way. We have more military men at military bases there than we've had in years. None of that changes. None of that. So we still have a super strong military presence there, and we bombed Karg Island this morning multiple times, despite the fact that when we bombed Karg Island back in early March, we took out their military infrastructure already and left their energy resources in the middle of the island. We left them intact, as it makes sense to do, because we don't want to have to rebuild those. So why would we be striking Karg Island? Of course, this was before the ceasefire deal went into effect, but understand what that means. As mentioned on this show, a show of force like this could be a way for Trump to at least procure the perception of victory, an image-based victory. We took their island where 90% of their oil exports pass through, right? So I said Karg Island might be a target. I also gave all the problems on why taking Karg Island would be hard to do, mainly because it's only 15 miles offshore from the Iranian mainland, which means it would be subject to continual attacks and harassments from the IRGC, making it very hard to maintain control over or utilize. Nevertheless, we weren't bombing it to rid it of the military targets. We did that already last month. What this, to me, indicates is we were preparing for a ground war invasion of Karg. We were preparing for boots on the ground on Karg Island should the IRGC not play ball. Now that the ceasefire deal is in effect, understand we won't be doing that for the next 2 weeks at least. Maybe not ever, hopefully not ever. But understand that that's very likely what that was. It was a preemptive bombing run to possibly clear the island of any IEDs or mines or ground forces, Iranian regime ground forces that could be hiding out in the region, to prepare it for a boots-on-the-ground invasion. That's what such a bombing run suggested to me. And I wanted to bring that up because that's important to keep that in the back of your mind during this 2-week ceasefire deal. If this doesn't end favorably, I think that's the next avenue that Trump was preparing to take this morning and will put in his back pocket to utilize at a later time. Because it is a key infrastructure island for Iran, and it would be, again, the kind of news that would be reported on in a sense where you could claim victory. 90% of Iranian oil exports pass through the island. We take the island, even at the cost of a lot of soldiers' lives, which I think would occur. That's the victory then, and that's the exchange. A little bit of political poison, boots on the ground. The final promise of Trump when it comes to no new wars violated, no doubt souring his administration with the rest of his base in some sense, but at the price in the exchange of being able to claim victory. So I wanted to report on that because that's important to understand. That bombing run, like I stated, it doesn't really. To me, it seemed like we were preparing for that, and then it got halted, obviously, with the ceasefire deal. So, and finally, on top of it, too, this was actually an interesting thing I wanted to read out here. It says, "Let me get this straight: over $40 billion spent, 300 Americans wounded, over a dozen Americans killed." Oil prices doubled, U.S. bases severely damaged, and what do we get? Iran keeps its uranium, no nuclear deal, the Strait of Hormuz is still unstable, and the world sees us as weaker, not stronger. And that's the truth. That's the truth, and that's why this war wasn't worth it. And even if it ends in 2 weeks, I don't see how America comes out looking better for it. Something that I said would be the problem with this all along on this channel. We should have left it at Venezuela. We should have focused on Cuba next. Instead, 93% or 87%, whatever it is, we all know the majority of Congress is purchased by AIPAC, bought by Israel. Most of our politicians are. Miriam Adelson and a lot of the Israeli lobby has donated hundreds of millions of dollars to President Donald Trump in his second term thus far. And Bibi Netanyahu visited the White House 7 times in the past year. And here we are, back at war in the Middle East, and there's just no outcome that I can see short of Iran completely capitulating, which just does not seem likely to me. There's no outcome I can see that makes us look better, which is the worst part about this. So I'll finish up by taking a look at some of your guys' chats. Mr. Taco, says David. It kind of was a taco a little bit, yeah. It's hard to say for sure conclusively right now, but history is full of patterns nobody knows, but you can bet and win pretty easily. That is so true, Chance. You just need to know your history. That's decently correct. Even the 39 trillion is bread and circus, in my opinion, says Chance. Iran keeps Trump on a leash. This great mouth comeback. Okay, I can't really read that. If you're going to speak English that broken, you probably just need to be deported from America. With the ceasefire, are ships allowed through, says bunch of names. Yes. Yeah. So the ships are allowed through, but Iran is insisting upon them being told at a rate of $2 million that they're willing to split in fairness with Oman. So a million per country for safe passage. They definitely had popcorn. They might have over in Israel. Yeah, just like in 01, the dancing Israelis. Yep, I know what you're talking about. Israel is mad because they are still getting hit. Iran is savage, says Unchained. Yeah. Yeah, they're going to be hitting each other for the next 24 to 48 hours. There's just no doubt about it. It's what they do every time. Every time. I believe so, bunch of dicks. I think he said with a toll. Yep, with a toll. Yep. Name a ceasefire they haven't violated, says Chance. Yeah, I can't do that. You know I can't name that. Bunch of names asks, where are our soldiers even? Are they in allied countries or just sitting on the ships? So they're a lot of them are occupying military bases, is the reports that I've seen. I've even seen a suggested idea that some of the military bases that were struck have induced a lot more injuries and possibly even casualties of our soldiers than that of what's currently being reported, which is not new to America if it's true. We did that during the Middle East War. We deliberately created a lag on the reporting of the death toll of our soldiers in the Middle East. So I can't confirm or deny that reporting, but a lot of them are in our military bases, and many of them are on naval vessels right now, at least to my understanding. Chance says they can invade east and west. They take the island and the coastal ridges. 100% they will draft and invade. I don't know about draft. I know we've seen the reports on that and everything. I think a draft is still very unlikely for this, but definitely invade. I predicted on this channel early on that boots on the ground would be imminent, and we've gotten very close to that prediction being correct several times so far in the timeline of this excursion. And I hope I'm wrong, and it looks like there's a good chance I'll be wrong, but this ceasefire deal needs to produce results over the next 2 weeks. And if not, there's still more writing on the wall with the recent Khark Island bombings today that suggest that this administration was going to go for it, but has halted it temporarily. They need 4 million. They have like 3 right now. Are you talking about for our soldiers? There is no ceasefire. It's only the beginning. My son is on a ship over there. God bless our military. I stand with Trump. I pray for your son, Unchained, even if I think you're halfway an idiot in my chat. I pray for your son and his safety. And I pray that he doesn't need to be put on the ground, honestly. No boots on the ground. That's what I stand for. We'd have to re-enter Iraq, Iraq, and Afghanistan to go east and west, though, says bunch of names. They have allies on both sides. So as a result of this, we already started bombing Iraq again. This is also something people aren't aware of, but we started doing some limited bombing runs on Iraq already. At least if I've read the reports right a couple days ago. They're going to move on to the next misinformation story. No, I mean because of the mountains. Too tough from the coast, says bunch of names. Yeah. No, that's true. That's the problem with Iran is their geographical terrain, their mountains. It's a futile action, says Chance. It is. It would result in a lot of lost soldiers' lives. It really would. That's why they've been sending over so many of them. Seems purposeful, and it's in the Pike letter. They're religious zealots. Unchained, if Iran had killed your son, you wouldn't still talk like that. Trump is a dumbass. They're going to bust out unrestricted warfare, genetic warfare, even more soon. We'll see. Hopefully not. Look up the video of Trump being called America's first Jewish president. I saw it by Mark Levin. I saw it. I saw him also like grabbing Trump's neck and stuff. I saw it. Henry, my son knows exactly what he signed up for. Well, that is true. We still pray for the best for your son. No boots on the ground would be nice. It's political poison. If Trump puts boots on the ground, just understand something. People don't like to hear this. I already think this has cost the GOP in midterms, both for House and Senate now. Polling is confirming this to varying degrees now. But if boots on the ground go in, I mean, that's the final straw for even a lot of conservatives. What time is it where you're at, says Eddie. Eddie, it is currently 4:58 in the morning. Eddie's going to go there and be like, holy shit, he really does live in the UK. I'd bet on a draft. Would be more devastating to the country, which seems like the plan. I don't think the draft is likely. I don't think that. I definitely hope it's not likely, but I don't think it's likely. Because, how much of our military would we be sending to that region? Saying you trust Trump at this point is insane, says Bold as a Lion, but I pray for your son's safety. I lost my brother in the Iraq war. Yep. The private credit market is the next 2008-1929 economic crisis. $39 trillion is not a joke. It's not. And there's this new economic trend of trying to insist that our national debt doesn't matter, but that is such bullshit. It definitely matters, especially as time goes on. We're going to see our borrowing power decline, especially if we keep doing bullshit like this in the Middle East. So I completely agree with that. He was gifted the silver menorah. Yeah. Bold, I'm so sorry for your loss. Yeah, Bold as a Lion has discussed that in chat here on this stream before. He lost his brother in the Iraq War, 2003. War's a terrible thing. we'd have to send all of it to have a chance at success. Oh man. I understand you're basing that probably off of the 3-to-1 odds kind of situation that's always discussed when it comes to invading, right? So I get the logic. I understand the numbers too. And that is usually the notion, the common sentiment when it comes to invading a country, 3-to-1. So you might not even be wrong. I don't know. We'll see. It's a lot of I saw they increased, what was it, the enlistment age to 42, and then what was the draft? The draft, obviously the draft is age 18 to 26, starts at age 20. Anyways, let's just hope that it never happens that way, right? Is there news in America anymore, says Lifeguard. Not right now, Lifeguard, because despite the fact that when I argue this online about how this is all coming at the expense of Americans, and then I'm told by MAGA cheerleaders, well, it doesn't really go that way. I mean, things can still happen here domestically. The point is, it doesn't tend to. Everything just becomes about the Middle East, a country that, or a region rather, that most Americans will never, ever live in. Iran being a country, and I don't mean this to disparage Americans, but Iran being a country most Americans can't even point to on a map, somehow becomes our focal point. Every single presidential term, the Middle East just sneaks in there at our detriment. It's so ridiculous. There is news to cover, Lifeguard, obviously, and I have been trying to cover it a little bit more, but today it was obviously dominated because by the Middle East news, because this is potentially good news. And it's major news. So, but I'll get back to covering like the Save America Act. That's going to be important to discuss. Birthright citizenship and the Supreme Court case. I've loosely covered that already. I'm just waiting for that for final updates on that too. So I'll get back to domestic news, but yeah, right now this is honestly of the utmost importance because it's a catastrophe. God bless Americans, but heal President Trump because he's mentally sick. Okay. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Do you think Trump will uphold the ceasefire? I think Trump will, but I'm more, like I stated, I'm more worried about Israel and Iran for that matter. So now Trump, of course, could backfire on it too because Trump has also been a willing party to violating them. But, you know, and that's, again, I'm almost willing to bet that that's Israeli influence that plays a part when that happens. But I think Trump will do his best to uphold it, yes. But if negotiations don't go well, then who knows? He's surrounded by sycophants is the issue. Yeah. Well, Trump is the issue. I think that should be made clear at this point because we're now living through a second term of a lot of the same mistakes being made. This is by far the worst mistake that I don't think many people could have predicted. Some did. I saw the Nick Fuentes tweet where he predicted this. Got to give that guy ups. But like Alex Jones was completely caught off guard. A lot of people were caught off guard by this. This is like the mistake that people were like most assured wouldn't happen, which is why it's such a nightmare situation. But a lot of the patterns that we're seeing unfold in this administration, firing Noem, firing Bondi, incompetence, poor decisions, backtracking on immigration. These are all things he did in his first term, picking all of the wrong people first term, right? So it is Trump at the end of the day. It literally is Trump, and it literally is his fault. But the people around him make it worse, and that's the truth. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. I really appreciate you. If you haven't already, it's not too late. You should double tap your phone screen or hit that thumbs up button to like the stream. It truly helps the stream perform well in the algorithm. And you should definitely subscribe right now to American Advocates for more content like this. When you do, click on one of my videos and hit the bell icon and select all notifications. Otherwise, you'll subscribe to this channel, but then YouTube will only notify you 1 out of every 4 times that I do something worthy of a notification, which means you just won't be here as much as you should be. And truthfully, of course, you should be here every single day for the full length of the stream, sharing the stream with everybody you know personally, telling them that this is by far the sexiest, smartest, best streamer out there. And that's why you need to be notified when I go live every single time. Also, go on my community post tabs, like every post that I make. When I post a video, like the video, comment on the video, give it full watch time, everything like that. That's what I need from you guys to truly support this channel, in addition, of course, to super chats. So appreciate all you guys nonetheless, though. Thanks for all the chats, all my regular listeners, my new listeners. I appreciate all of you, all the kind words. I even appreciate the goy cows, the cattle, the swine. You guys play your part as well when it comes to helping this channel do well. So thank you guys. Hope you enjoyed the analysis here. I'll be back here live tomorrow. 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern is the time I aim to go live. I aim for that time, but a lot of times it turns into 9:15, 9:30, 9:45 Eastern, 10 Eastern, 10:15 Eastern, 10:30 Eastern sometimes, okay? But it's around that time, so just be checking your phone Eastern time between 9 and 11 p.m. That's the moral of the story. But I'll be back live tomorrow. Until then, glory to America. God bless the USA, and God bless every single one of you. Have a great rest of your evening.